Chapter 90. The Indigo Mountain Academy was located 3 miles east of the Indigo County City. Every 3 years, the Indigo Mountain Academy would recruit a new batch of students, and these students would study in the Indigo Mountain Academy for 6 years. Every batch would be divided into 11 classes, 10 ordinary classes, and 1 genius class. Each class had 70 students, and there were no changes. After graduating, the students would return to their hometowns. Those who performed well could work in the Indigo Mountain Academy or be recruited into the Indigo Marquee Manor. Yi Xing's batch of students who entered the academy were elementary students. The previous batch's students were automatically promoted to advanced students, and the previous batch's advanced students would graduate and leave. Mu Feng sent Yi Xing's group to the Indigo Mountain Academy, and there were naturally people from the academy to receive them. Yi Xing, you're a 2-star Heavenly Fate realm, and you'll be criticized in the genius class. The Indigo Mountain Academy isn't like other places, so you have to be patient and don't be arrogant. There's no need to pay attention to the rumors. Before Mu Feng left, he reminded Yi Xing, however, I'm not asking you to be a coward. A cultivator's dignity cannot be sullied, and the academy has its own rules. If someone breaks the rules to deal with you, feel free to retaliate. Your potential will definitely attract the attention of the Indigo Marquee, and if you're treated unfairly, the Marquee will not sit idly by. Many thanks, Master Mu. Yi Xing cupped his fists, feeling grateful in his heart. Mu Feng's job was to recruit students from Azure Sky City and escort them to the Indigo Mountain Academy. Now that his job was done, he naturally left. The 10 people from Azure Sky City were divided into 2 groups. Yi Yunlong and 8 other ordinary class students were brought away by a 7th-level martial Dao master. As for Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian, they were brought away by an 8th-level martial Dao master. Both of them were deacons of the academy, responsible for the discipline of the students. The 7th-level martial Dao master was the ordinary class deacon, and the 8th-level martial Dao master was the deacon of the Tiandu class. In the Indigo Mountain Academy, other than deacons, there were teachers, and they were 1 level higher than deacons. The deacons of the ordinary class were 7th-level martial Dao masters, while the teachers were 8th-level martial Dao masters. The deacons of the genius class were 8th-level martial Dao masters, while the teachers were 9th-level martial Dao masters. A portion of the upper management of the academy were teachers from the genius class. There were also a few who weren't in charge of teaching. They were the vice deans, and they were the highest level of the academy. Of course, strictly speaking, the highest authority should be Zishan-ho, because he was the dean of the Purple Mountain Academy. However, Zishan-ho rarely interfered with the affairs of the academy, so the ones in charge were the vice deans. Yi Xing, this is your student identity card. The number on it is your seat number in class and your room number. Wei Qingxian, this is yours. The Grand Master Deacon brought Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian to the front of a building and gave each of them a card. Both of their cards had the words, Genius Class, written on the front and different numbers on the back. One was 46 and the other was 47. There were a total of 70 people in the gifted class, so this card was definitely given out according to the order of registration. Those who were from the county capital would definitely be the first to arrive. Those 30 people would definitely be the first 30. As for the other cities, whoever arrived first would receive the card with the higher number. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian didn't arrive too late. It could be seen that Tiansong City wasn't the furthest from the county capital. There were some cities even further away. The dormitories of the common class were 4 people sharing a room, while the genius class dormitories were 1 person per room. Therefore, the dormitories of the genius class didn't discriminate between males and females. Yi Xing was in room 46, while Wei Qingxian was in room 67. They should be next to each other. Your rooms are protected by a formation. Your identity card is the key to open the door. Today is the registration day. Go back to your rooms and rest. The Grand Master Deacon instructed the 2 of them and left. Yi Xing looked at the building in front of him. It was divided into 7 floors, and each floor had 10 rooms. On the opposite side of this building, there was another building that was almost identical except for the color. Each floor had 10 rooms, and there were 7 floors in total. Academy, Tall building. This made Yi Xing sigh with emotion. He thought of his student days on Earth. However, the tall building in front of him had a strong ancient style and didn't have the slightest hint of modernity. It didn't give Yi Xing the wrong impression, and he quickly put away his emotions. Everything in the past was already a distant memory. The world he was in now was the most important. I wonder what this martial arts academy is like? Yi Xing thought to himself with a faint smile on his face. No matter what, he had already become a student of the Purple Mountain Academy's genius class. He was in a good mood today. Let's go up. Wei Qingxuan's voice came from the side. Yi Xing nodded, and the two of them walked up to the dormitory. The two of them walked to the staircase. Just as they were about to go up, the sound of hooves came from afar. Stop! A cold shout came. Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian turned around and saw several people in the distance. They were all young people around 18 or 19 years old. They were riding demon horses that were half the size of ordinary horses and were rushing towards them. The speed of these demon horses was very fast. They rushed to the front of the two in a few breaths. Some of them slowed down, but one of them didn't slow down and continued to rush towards Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian. Yi Xing's eyes narrowed. The person on the horse had a murderous intent towards him. The demon horse was tall and was a mid-level vicious beast. It rushed over with an intimidating aura. It was extremely frightening. Wei Qingxian was affected and couldn't help but take half a step back. At this time, Yi Xing took a step forward and blocked in front of Wei Qingxian. His expression didn't change. As a student of the Purple Mountain Academy, he was very sure that no one would dare to directly ride a horse and injure him. Hiss! Sure enough, when the demon horse was a meter away from him, the person on the horse pulled the reins. The demon horse let out a long neigh and instantly stood up. After 2 breaths, the demon horse raised its 2 front hooves and stomped on the ground in front of Yi Xing. It made a loud thud. The horse's head was a foot in front of Yi Xing. The hot breath from the horse's nose directly rushed to Yi Xing's face, but Yi Xing's expression didn't change. He wasn't afraid at all. Yi Xing had his super brain scanning. If the demonic horse didn't stop, he was confident that he could take Wei Qingxian away the moment it crashed into them. But if the demonic horse stopped, he calculated that the demonic horse couldn't hurt him. Of course, he wasn't scared at all. The young man on the horse was the youngest among them. He shouldn't be more than 19 years old. Yi Xing's expression didn't change. He was slightly surprised, but it was immediately replaced by a fierce look. He glared at Yi Xing. His voice was cold and filled with killing intent. He shouted, "You're Yi Xing?" Yi Xing nodded slightly. He looked at the man on the horse and said, "You're Xianxia?" Yi Xing didn't know anyone in the Purple Mountain Academy, but this person looked at him with killing intent. It was obvious that he had a death grudge with him. It could only be Xianxia. Xianxia had a good relationship in the Purple Mountain Academy. When the younger generation from Azure Sky City arrived, he received the news. Then he rushed to the genius class dormitory. When Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian went upstairs, he just arrived. Xianxia glared at Yi Xing and said, "Little bastard, I finally see you. What you did to my Xiong family, I will return it to you tenfold. I will make you die without a burial place." Facing Xianxia's threat, Yi Xing smiled indifferently and said, "Little bastard, who are you scolding?" Xianxia shouted, "Little bastard scolding you." Just as he finished speaking, Xianxia felt that something was wrong. Yi Xing was already holding his stomach and laughing. "Little bastard scolding me, ha!" Wei Qingxian, who was behind Yi Xing, couldn't help but let out a bell-like laughter. As for the other young people on the back of the demon horses, they held back their laughter and didn't dare to laugh out loud. Xianxia's imposing aura was completely dispersed by Yi Xing's laughter. Xianxia, who was on the horse, no longer felt high and mighty. Instead, he felt like a clown. This made Xianxia extremely angry. He snorted and said, "Laugh all you want. Sooner or later, I will make you kneel in front of me and cry." Yi Xing also sneered and said disdainfully, "With just you?" Xianxia's eyes were cold. He said, "You dare to look down on me?" Facing Xianxia's oppressive aura, Yixing was like a spring breeze. His expression was normal and he still looked disdainful. You've been in the Zishan Academy for 3 years, and you're only at the 7th level of cultivation. May I ask, are you worthy of my respect? Xianxia shouted angrily, since you look down on me so much, do you dare to fight with me on the life and death arena? Yixing was surprised. Xianxia looked reckless, but he was actually quite scheming. His method of pretending to be angry was also a form of provocation. The life and death arena was a place where life and death would be determined as soon as one stepped on it. Xianxia obviously wanted to provoke Yixing into going on the life and death arena. At that time, Yixing's life would be in his hands. However, Xianxia underestimated Yixing too much. Yixing's heart was clear, so how could he be provoked by him? Just as he was about to speak, he felt his palm warm. It was grabbed by a warm and soft hand. Yixing turned his head and saw Wei Qingxian shaking her head at him. At the same time, she withdrew her warm and soft hand. Clearly, she was reminding Yixing not to be provoked by Xianxia. Yixing nodded and smiled at Wei Qingxian. He turned around and said, Xianxia, you're a student of the advanced genius class. Don't you feel ashamed to challenge me, a student of the elementary genius class who just entered the academy, to the life and death arena? If I were you, I'd directly buy a piece of tofu and kill myself. Yixing's words caused Xianxia's expression to become even more gloomy. Without waiting for Xianxia to speak again, Yixing laughed lightly and said disdainfully, however, I really do look down on you. I've entered Zishan Academy for 3 months. In 3 months' time, I'll beat you until you're looking for your teeth on the ground. You won't be able to tell north from south. Xianxia's eyes narrowed. He said coldly, fine, I'll wait for you for 3 months. I'd like to see who's looking for their teeth on the ground after 3 months, and who's the one who won't be able to tell north from south. Go! Xianxia waved to the others and immediately urged his horse to leave. However, after only 30 meters, Xianxia reined in his horse and stopped. He turned around and looked at Yixing. His gaze was disdainful. Genius class student? Huh? You're not worthy and you're not. Then, Xianxia laughed loudly and urged his horse to leave. He disappeared from Yixing's and Wei Qingxuan's sight. There's a third update tonight. I'm crying for a recommendation vote. Brothers, what do you think of Wei Qingxuan's portrait? I think it's super beautiful. I'm very satisfied. Follow Lord Chocolate. Everyone. Mail, hey Chocolate. You can receive portraits of the various characters of the Arrow God from the publishing house. Chapter 91. Xianxia is famous in Azure Sky City, but in reality he's only SOSO. Wei Qingxian commented as she watched Xianxia's departing figure. 3 years ago, Wei Qingxian was only an 11-year-old girl, while Xianxia was a 15-year-old genius, a proud son of heaven in Azure Sky City. At that time, Wei Qingxian had just started cultivating and had never met Xianxia. She had only heard of Xianxia's fame. Although he was only 15 years old, all the juniors in Azure Sky City under the age of 25 could not raise their heads. Therefore, to Wei Qingxian at that time, Xianxia was a high and mighty existence. Even when Wei Qingxian rose to prominence in Celestial Azure City, and all the cultivators said that she was more talented than Xianxia, she didn't have the slightest intention of belittling Xianxia. However, the current Wei Qingxian, through the conversation with Mu Feng on the way, had broadened her horizons. When she saw Xianxia again, she no longer had the feeling of looking up to him. She felt that Xianxia was ordinary and nothing more. Yixing, on the other hand, had long set the martial saint realm as his goal. From the beginning, he did not think that Xianxia was amazing. Now, he naturally did not put him in his eyes. He would soon step into the 6th stage of the martial Dao, while Xianxia had not stepped into the 8th stage of the martial Dao. It would not be difficult to catch up to him. However, what puzzled Yixing was that when Xianxia left, he said that he was not worthy and was not a student of the gifted class. What did that mean? Wei Qingxian was also not clear about this point. The two of them went upstairs. Rooms 46 and 47 were right next to each other. The two of them smiled at each other and used their identity cards to open the door. Then, they entered their respective rooms. Yi Xing had learned a lot of martial arts from the Xiong family. He needed time to practice and integrate them. After entering the room, he continued to use his super brain to simulate a human form to practice. The first day of entering the academy passed peacefully. The next day, Yi Xing finally understood what Xiong Qixing meant when he left. That was because the people in charge of recruiting students in the various cities didn't limit the number of people they could recruit. If they found someone good, they would accept them. If they didn't, they wouldn't accept a single one. It just so happened that there were more talented juniors in this batch. The number of students in the genius class had exceeded the quota of 70, reaching 76. In other words, there were 6 more spots. This kind of situation had happened before. That was because Zishan Academy's genius class had a fixed quota of 70 people. Therefore, if there were more than 70 people in the genius class, a few more would be eliminated and transferred to the ordinary class. Similarly, if there were less than 70 spots, it would mean that there were too many spots in the ordinary class. Then, a few outstanding students from the ordinary class would be promoted to the genius class. This way, the ordinary class and the genius class would always remain at 770 spots. Yi Wendao had entered Zishan Academy before. He had told Yi Xing that if the number of students in the genius class exceeded the quota, the weakest few would be eliminated. Most of the students who were recruited into the genius class were in the 6th rank. A small portion of them were in the 5th rank. Therefore, Yi Xing couldn't be eliminated based on strength. However, the elimination rules had changed this time. This batch of students in the genius class exceeded the quota by 6. Among you, 6 of you will be eliminated from the genius class and transferred to the ordinary class. Mo Xiaozong, a 9th-stage martial scholar and the teacher of Zishan Academy's junior genius class, stood in front of all the students and said with a serious expression, "I heard that the reason why the quota exceeded the quota this time was because some of the students with ordinary or even poor aptitudes used their connections to enter the genius class to fish in troubled waters. The Academy is determined to crack down on such people. Therefore, those with low heavenly fate and poor aptitudes will be eliminated first." As he spoke, Mo Xiaozong's gaze swept across the students in the genius class. His gaze paused on Yi Xing for a moment. Beside Mo Xiaozong, Xiong Qixing was also looking at Yi Xing with a face full of smiles. At this moment, how could Yi Xing not understand that Xiong Qixing's method of eliminating people based on heavenly fate and not strength? Xiong Qixing's master was one of the vice principals of Zishan Academy. He did have some ability in the academy. The master-disciple relationship was much closer than the teacher-student relationship. Perhaps the vice principal didn't need to personally make an appearance. Just the fact that Xiong Qixing was the vice principal's personal disciple was enough to make the teacher change a little. Yi Xing's expression didn't change, but anger had already risen in his heart. The difference between the gifted class and the ordinary class wasn't just in name. There was also a huge difference in the treatment they received. The ordinary class was taught by an 8th-stage martial scholar, while the genius class was taught by a 9th-stage martial scholar. Obviously, the 9th-stage martial scholar had a deeper understanding of martial arts and taught better. However, Yi Xing didn't care about this. He was better than any teacher. But there was another difference that made Yi Xing's heart ache. The students of the ordinary class could receive 1 high-grade star accumulating pill per month, while the students of the genius class could receive 2 star accumulating pills per month. The importance of the star accumulating pill was needless to say. It was directly linked to a cultivator's cultivation. Naturally, the more one had, the faster one's cultivation would be. If he was eliminated from the genius class, the number of high-grade star accumulating pills he could receive would be reduced by half. How could he not be angry? Although he knew that the other party was deliberately targeting him, it was related to his interests. Yi Xing had to argue and said, "Teacher Mo, I heard that the school's previous rule is to eliminate people based on their strength." Mo Xiaozong nodded with a smile and said, "This student is right. Aptitude is important, but so is strength. So, if a student is eliminated because of a low heaven's fate, He can prove his strength if he thinks he is strong. Speaking of this, Mo Xiaozong introduced Xianxia next to him. This is Xianxia, a student of the advanced genius class. He will test the strength of the eliminated students. If Xianxia thinks his strength is qualified, he can continue to join the genius class. Next to him, Xianxia nodded with a smile, but his eyes were fierce, constantly sweeping over Yixing, F***ck. Yixing suddenly clenched his fists. His heart was burning with anger. He was not joining the advanced genius class. How could he compete with Xianxia? Yixing understood that not only did the other party want to force him out of the genius class, but he also wanted to give him no room to resist. If Yixing insisted that he was strong and should not be eliminated, then he would have to fight with Xianxia. Xianxia's cultivation was at the peak of 7th stage, and Yixing had not stepped into the 6th stage of martial path. Even if he had a bow and arrow, it would be difficult for him to be Xianxia's opponent. Moreover, in a battle of strength, how could Yixing be allowed to use a bow and arrow? Therefore, once they fought, not only would Yixing not be able to enter the genius class, he would also die miserably. Wei Qingxian was standing next to Yixing. She naturally heard that this elimination plan was targeted at Yixing. Seeing Yixing clenching his fists and his shoulders trembling, it was obvious that he was extremely angry. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. Yixing, bear with it for now. After this, go to the Zishan Marquis residence and tell Grandmaster Mu Feng about this. Grandmaster Mu Feng will not sit idly by. Wei Qingxuan's soft hand held Yixing's fist and whispered in Yixing's ear. Feeling the softness on the back of his hand, Yixing's heart stirred, and his anger immediately dissipated. For some reason, perhaps because he was emotional, Wei Qingxuan's warm and soft hand made Yixing feel at ease. Yixing loosened his fist and naturally grabbed Wei Qingxuan's slender hand. This made the anger in Yixing's heart completely dissipate. This made Yixing understand that when a person was angry, they needed someone close to them to accompany them. Yixing did not look at Wei Qingxian, and Wei Qingxian did not look at Yixing either. However, when the two of them held hands, neither of them flinched, appearing very natural. At this moment, an indescribable feeling spread in the hearts of the two of them. When Xianxia saw Yixing and Wei Qingxuan's actions, the corners of his eyes twitched, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. In the letter that Xiong Baotian gave him, not only did he want him to deal with Yixing, but he also wanted him to be on good terms with Wei Qingxian and marry Wei Qingxian in the future. In Xianxia's eyes, Wei Qingxian was already his woman. At this moment, when he saw Yixing and Wei Qingxian holding hands, how could he not be angry in his heart? Little bastard, forcing you into the ordinary class is only the first step. I will force you into a dead end step by step. In Celestial Azure City, you are full of glory, but in the Purple Mountain Academy, in front of me, Xianxia, you are just an ant at my mercy. Xianxia narrowed his eyes as he viciously thought in his heart. Under Mo Xiaozong's supervision, the students in the genius class tested their heavenly fate one by one. Most of them were 7-star heavenly fate, but there were also some who were 8-star and 6-star heavenly fate. When it was Yixing's turn, he was only a 2-star heavenly fate, which immediately caused a burst of laughter. Those who were able to enter the Purple Mountain Academy's genius class were all geniuses of their city. Among these geniuses, there were only a few 6-star heavenly fate, and they belonged to the bottom. Yixing's 2-star heavenly fate was even more conspicuous. This 2-star heavenly fate dared to talk about strength earlier. Teacher Mo said that he was the one who relied on the Marquis Manor's connections to enter the genius class. That's him, right? Huh. What a joke. Many students in the genius class mocked Yixing. Most of them were 8-star heavenly fate, and some were 7-star heavenly fate. They thought that they were peerless geniuses and were ashamed to be in the same class as a 2-star heavenly fate. Even though there were heaven-defying geniuses among low-level heavens mandate cultivators, the proportion was too small. Not even 1 in 10,000 would be able to rise. Thus, all the geniuses mocked Yixing for being a 2-star heavens mandate. Wei Qingxian unhappily walked out and said, "You're mocking Yixing's low heavenly fate. Do Do you think that you're a peerless genius? There's always a taller mountain. How can true talent be judged by heavenly fate alone? Moreover, even if we're talking about heavenly fate, you're only SOS. What qualifications do you have to mock others? Wei Qingxian was protecting Yi Xing, so she couldn't help but change the way she addressed him. This was also the reason why their relationship was getting closer. An 8-star genius saw that Wei Qingxian was with Yi Xing and instinctively said with disdain, "You're too arrogant. A mere 2-star heavenly fate is thousands of miles away from us. Why can't we mock you? You keep saying that we don't have talent, but how many stars do you have?" Chapter 92. That's right. Who do you think you are? How many stars do you have? Being in the same team as a 2-star heavenly mandate, he should also be a piece of trash. What right does he have to criticize us? The 8-star Destiny Realm cultivators who had just mocked Yi Xing also mocked him one after another. Yi Xing was already immune to the mockery of others. He wasn't angry at all and his expression was normal. However, at this moment, Yi Xing's face revealed a strange expression. It was one thing for these genius students to mock him, but they actually wanted to mock Wei Qingxian. This time, their faces would probably be slapped swollen. When had Wei Qingxian ever been called a piece of trash? Her face immediately turned pale as she placed her hand on the Blood Life Stone. In an instant, the Blood Life Stone glowed and the 9-star slots lit up one after another. The students immediately stopped mocking him. Previously, no one had ever been able to make the Blood Life Stone glow so brightly or make the star slots light up so quickly. Almost in the blink of an eye, 3 lit up. In the next blink, 6 lit up. In the next blink, 9 lit up. All 9 star slots were lit up. 9-star destiny. Apart from Yi Xing, who already knew this would happen, all the cultivators present were shocked and dumbfounded. A 9-star Destiny Realm cultivator could cultivate to the 9th stage of the martial path. Basically, they could become a grandmaster before the age of 20, which was a level higher than an 8-star Destiny Realm cultivator. Even though the Violet Mountain Academy was known as the Cradle of Geniuses, it was rare for a 9-star Heaven's Mandate to appear in each batch. With a higher Fate star, one's future achievements would be 1 level higher. Although it was not absolute, it could be said to be absolute. Among 10,000 people, at least 9,999 would be like this. Only the other one in 10,000 would be able to surpass those with a higher destiny through luck and fortune. Those with a higher destiny than him were almost negligible. The 8-star destiny students who mocked Wei Qingxian earlier felt their faces burning. If she was trash, then they were trash among trash. Wei Qingxian recalled what Mu Feng had said. Her heavenly fate might not be limited to 9 stars. Hence, she did not move her hand away when all 9-star slots were lit up. The red light in the 9-star slots of the Blood Life Stone became more and more intense and dazzling. However, there were no other changes. He didn't know if it was because the Blood Fate Stone's grade was too low and couldn't determine a fate beyond 9 stars, or if Wei Qingxuan's fate was only 9 stars. Even if Wei Qingxian was only a 9-star Heaven's Mandate, one could tell from the blinding light that her aptitude might be higher than ordinary 9-star Heaven's Mandates. Looking at the dazzling red light, the hearts of the students changed and they looked up to Wei Qingxian. From this moment onwards, Wei Qingxian became a popular figure in the junior gifted class. Although Wei Qingxuan's face was covered with a veil and the students couldn't see her face, they automatically imagined Wei Qingxian to be a peerless beauty. The female students were naturally envious and jealous, while the male students were all over the moon and treated Wei Qingxian as their goddess. Wei Qingxuan's 9-star Heaven's Mandate shocked Xiong Qixing too. He stared blankly, which made him even more confident. "She's mine. She's mine. I must make her my woman." As for Mo Xiaozong, when he saw the powerful red light, his eyes flashed with shock as he thought of an even more shocking result. Seeing that there were no other changes to the Blood Life Stone, Wei Qingxian lowered her hand in disappointment. Wei Qingxian didn't rush back to the students. Instead, she said to Mo Xiaozong, "Teacher Mo, although I'm a 9-star Heaven's Mandate and my cultivation is higher than Yi Xing's, my strength can't compare to Yi Xing's. Yixing's future won't be below mine either. Why can't he be in the gifted class? This Mo Xiaozong wanted to refute, but he hesitated when he thought of Wei Qingxuan's aptitude. Mo Xiaozong used to be the top genius of the Indigo Mountain Academy's gifted class. After graduating, he stayed in the academy to work. First, he was a deacon of the gifted class. Later, he broke through to the 9th level and became a teacher of the gifted class. Other than the vice principals, he was also a top figure in the Indigo Mountain Academy. If Wei Qingxian was also a 9-star Heaven's Mandate, he naturally wouldn't hesitate. However, he knew that the Blood Life Stone was of the lowest grade and couldn't test a higher mandate. After Wei Qingxian was tested as a 9-star Heaven's Mandate, the bright red light it emitted was much stronger than his. This made Mo Xiaozong wonder if Wei Qingxuan's mandate had surpassed the 9-star Heaven's Mandate and reached the Martial Saint Heaven's Mandate. If that was the case, then Wei Qingxian was a future Martial Saint. This made Mo Xiaozong apprehensive. Mo Xiaozong had his misgivings, but Xiong Qixing had no misgivings. He already regarded Wei Qingxian as his woman. How could he let Yixing stay in the gifted class? Naturally, he wanted to trample Yixing to death and completely cut off Wei Qingxuan's thoughts. Xiong Qixing said, "Junior Qingxian, you're wrong. You're a 9-star Heaven's Mandate and your future is bright. He's only a 2-star Heaven's Mandate. Even if he has some good fortune and his strength is greater than yours now, how can he compare to you in the future?" He. Xiong Qixing said with a smile. He glanced at the other students and continued, "Let alone you, junior sister apprentice Qingxian, even the other juniors are not comparable to that trash. The students of the gifted class can at least become martial Dao masters in the future, but he?" Xiong Qixing's gaze fell on Yixing and his tone became extremely disdainful. "Once you've had a fortuitous encounter, it's hard for you to have it a second time. How can you be blessed with providence every time? If he's really lucky and can become a martial Dao master in the future, then he can be accepted into the gifted class. But now, he can't be placed in the gifted class just based on his current strength. Doesn't have that qualification." Xiong Qixing's tone became gloomy. His eyes narrowed and a cold light flashed. He stared at Yixing like a vicious snake and let out a sneer. "Unless he can pass my test, then his trash aptitude can be ignored and he can continue to be a student of the gifted class. Yixing, do you have the guts to let me test your strength?" Everyone looked at Yixing. They could tell from Xiong Qixing's tone that Xiong Qixing was targeting Yixing. If Yixing dared to accept the challenge, he would definitely be beaten up badly. Xiong Qixing tried his best to make Yixing take the initiative to fight with him, but Yixing wouldn't fall for it. He smiled indifferently and said, "I'd better go to the ordinary class. But don't worry, even if I'm in the ordinary class, it'll be easy for me to beat you in 3 months." Yixing wasn't afraid of making a big deal out of it. Only a few people knew about the 3-month agreement yesterday, but today he wanted everyone to know. "Didn't you want to step on me? Then I'll step on you to death." A student of the elite class, an 8-star Heaven's Mandate realm genius, was defeated by a new student who just entered the academy for 3 months. "Let's see where you'll put your face at that time. You forced me to go to the ordinary class. When the time comes, the ordinary class new student will defeat you in 3 months. It'll only make you look more like a failure." Yixing thought in his heart. He didn't have the thought of going to the Marquis's mansion to report this matter to Grandmaster Mu Feng. If he needed to find connections and rely on others to solve a small problem, it would only prove his incompetence. So what if he was in the ordinary class? Although it was less than half of the star accumulating pill, Yixing believed that he wouldn't stay in the ordinary class for long. When he defeated Xiong Qixing in front of everyone, the academy would invite him back to the elite class. Otherwise, if a student from the ordinary class was above the elite class, everyone would say that the academy was blind. Yixing didn't accept the challenge, which made Xiong Qixing very depressed. As a student of the elite class, he couldn't deal with Yixing for no reason. If he did, he would be cursed as a senior bullying a junior. The Indigo Mountain Academy was very particular about its reputation. Therefore, without a suitable excuse, he really couldn't harm Yixing's life. He could only suppress Yixing, but at most, he could only force Yixing to go to the ordinary class. He couldn't force Yixing to drop out because he didn't have that ability. Soon, all the students finished testing their heavenly fate. Apart from Yixing, the lowest heavenly fate was 9 6-star heavenly fate. Among them, there were naturally 5 unlucky people who were picked out and assigned to the ordinary class along with Yixing. Because in order to prove their strength, they needed to fight Xianxia. Those 5 unlucky people didn't dare to challenge a senior from the elite class. Their names were confirmed. After handing over his elite class identity card, Yixing received his ordinary class identity card. His number was ordinary class 10, room 175. Yixing, go find Grandmaster Mu. Grandmaster Mu will definitely uphold justice for you. Wei Qingxian was very indignant about this. Yixing patted her shoulder and said, "There's no need to trouble Grandmaster Mu with such a small matter. I can handle it myself. Just watch, it won't be long before the academy takes the initiative to invite me back to the elite class." Yixing and the 5 6-star heavenly fate were sent to the ordinary class's dormitory by the academy's deacon. On the way, Xianxia caught up and called Yixing to the side. He whispered, "Trash, when you're in the ordinary class, I'll have plenty of chances to kill you." Yixing's eyes were like knives as he stared at Xianxia with a look of contempt. "Bring it on. If you can't kill me, 3 months later, I'll make you the biggest joke of the Purple Mountain Academy. At that time, let's see if you still have the face to live in this world." Xianxia's eyes were cold as he said, "Do you think you can still live for 3 months? So what if you can live for 3 months? It won't be long before I step into the 8th stage of the martial Dao and become a martial scholar. At that time, we'll see who lives and who dies." With that, Xianxia turned to leave. But suddenly, he thought of something and turned back to continue speaking. "When I become an 8th stage martial scholar, I'll ask my master for a marriage between me and Wei Qingxian. You should know that my master is the Vice Principal Wang. If the Vice Principal wants a marriage, who dares to disobey? Only one place away from the overall ranking. Brothers, every vote has the chance to send the Archer God to the overall ranking. Please recommend it. In addition, Chidian is making a list of the best works of 2014. You can vote for the Archer God on the Archer God's homepage. The Archer God was released on the 11th of November 2014. Naturally, it's a work of 2014. If you think the Archer God is good, please vote for it." Chapter 93. As Xianxia left, Yixing's eyes flashed with a cold, murderous glint. Yixing really wanted to kill Xianxia. If he had the chance, he would not let it go. The deacons did not care about the conflicts between the students. They would only intervene if a fight broke out in front of them. Naturally, they did not interfere with Yixing and Xianxia. When Yixing returned, the deacons sent the 6 of them to the ordinary class dormitory and left. The ordinary class had already been allocated to different classes and dormitories, so the 6 people who came later were all allocated to ordinary class 10. 2 of them were in dormitory 174, and 4 were in dormitory 175. The other 3 who were allocated to dormitory 175 with Yi Crossing were Wu Yuan, Massachusetts Bo, and Niedong. The 3 of them were young, about the same age as Yixing. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo's Cultivation were at the mid-6th level, while Niedong was at the peak of the 6th level. In terms of destiny and cultivation, the 3 of them were on par with Gu Yijin and Xianxia. However, the 3 of them were 1 year younger than Gu Yijin and Xianxia, so their potential was greater. They were recruited into the genius class by the Marquis residence, who was in charge of recruiting students. Yixing had just entered the dormitory when he suddenly felt a gust of wind at the back of his head. Niedong, who was walking behind Yixing, suddenly attacked and threw a punch at the back of Yixing's head. Niedong had been at the peak of the 6th level for a longer time than Xianxia. His cultivation was more stable, and his inner force was more vigorous. The power of his punch was terrifying. Although Yixing had perfected the bronze tactic, he had not mastered the iron head technique. The back of his head would definitely not be able to withstand this punch. Niedong's punch came extremely quickly, and it was beyond Yixing's expectations. However, Yixing's reaction was extremely fast, and he immediately stepped into the Big Dipper. Stage of transformation, 7 stars step. Just as Niedong's fist was about to land on the back of Yixing's head, Yixing's body transformed into a series of afterimages. In the blink of an eye, he dashed forward and appeared on the other side of the dormitory, dodging the punch. "You dare to sneak attack me?" Yixing's eyes were like swords as he stared at Niedong and shouted. If his 7-star steps hadn't reached perfection, he definitely wouldn't have been able to dodge that punch. If the opponent's sneak attack had been ordered by Xianxia, the consequences would have been unimaginable. If a high-ranked student bullied a low-ranked student, it would affect the academy's reputation and the academy would punish them severely. However, fights between freshmen were common and there was nothing they could do about it. Geniuses of the younger generation were proud and arrogant. When geniuses from different places gathered together, it was very normal for fights to break out. If one were to accidentally injure the other party in a fight, although they would be punished by the academy, it would be relatively light. Flames of anger burned in Yixing's eyes. There was already a ball of fire in his heart, and Niedong's actions had completely ignited it. Moreover, he had no grudge against Niedong. Why would the latter attack him? It was very likely that he had been ordered by Xianxia. This made Yixing even angrier. Niedong was surprised that Yixing had dodged the punch. His face was filled with surprise. Coupled with Yixing's shout, Niedong's eyes suddenly darted away. A flaw appeared in his heart. However, Niedong's dodging gaze only lasted for a moment. He calmed down and glared at Niedong. "That's right. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been kicked out of the gifted class. Today, I'll beat you to death." Behind him, Wu Yuan and Ma Bo walked in and slammed the dormitory door shut. They stood on either side of Niedong and glared at Yixing fiercely. Ma Bo sneered. Wu Yuan said, "That's right. It's all because of you that we were kicked out of the gifted class. Today we'll beat you to death." Seeing that the three of them seemed to have made an agreement, Yixing sneered in his heart. How could he not understand that the three of them must have been ordered by Xianxia? Otherwise, even if the three of them were dissatisfied with him, they wouldn't have jumped out together to deal with him, a LV5 martial artist. "Xianxia ordered you to deal with me?" Yixing's sharp gaze swept across the faces of the three of them. After all, the three of them were young and not too shrewd. When Yixing said the truth, their expressions changed slightly. Of course, they knew that this matter couldn't be exposed. They tried their best to hide the panic in their hearts and tried their best to appear angry. "What nonsense are you talking about? We don't even know Senior Xiong," Ma Bo said, pretending to be calm. Niedong was obviously the leader of the three. He waved his hand and said, "Don't talk nonsense with this trash. Beat him to death." Xianxia had told the three of them that Yixing's strength was not weaker than any of them. That was why Niedong had launched a sneak attack on Yixing when he entered the dormitory. Since the sneak attack failed, the three of them naturally had to work together to deal with Yixing. Xianxia had already told them how to deal with the aftermath after beating Yixing to death. They would say that Yixing had gone berserk in the dormitory because he was kicked out of the gifted class and wanted to kill people. In order to protect themselves, the three of them had mistakenly killed Yixing while resisting. As Niedong spoke, he took out a dagger from his sleeve. The dagger shone with a cold light. Its grade was no lower than the one Yixing had obtained from the masked assassin. It was obviously an upper-grade weapon. The three of them attacked at the same time. Niedong used the dagger technique, Wu Yuan used the fist technique, and Ma Bo used the palm technique. All of them were upper-grade martial arts techniques as they attacked Yixing. Even though Xianxia had warned them that Yixing's strength was not weaker than any of them, the three of them did not think much of Yixing. They were the top geniuses in their respective cities and were all level 6 martial artists. In their opinion, it would be easy for the three of them to kill a level 5 martial artist if they worked together. However, they were wrong. Very wrong. Yixing, who had used the 7-star steps of the Transcendent Realm, dodged Wu Yuan's fist like a phantom. At the same time, his fists moved and turned into countless fist shadows. It was the upper-grade martial arts technique, Thousand Shadow Fist. Bam 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 bam, Before Niedong's dagger and Ma Bao's fist landed on Yixing, the two of them were hit several times by Yixing and were forced to retreat. The two of them vomited blood. They were severely injured, especially Niedong, who was Yixing's main target. Niedong even vomited pieces of his internal organs. It was obvious that Yixing had hit him hard. This was not a competition in the arena. Yixing had no intention of hiding his strength. Once he used the Thousand Shadow Fist, no one under the level 7 could match him, unless the opponent was a martial Dao master. The three of them together were no match for Yixing. In one move, Niedong and Ma Bao were both severely injured. Wu Yuan was horrified and quickly retreated. However, the dormitory was only so big. Where could he retreat to? Yixing's 7-star steps was so fast that he appeared in front of Wu Yuan in the blink of an eye. The dense fist shadows continued to attack. It was the Thousand Shadow Fist again. "Spare me!" Wu Yuan screamed. Bang 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 bang. After a few deep sounds, Wu Yuan was sent flying by Yixing. He also vomited blood and was severely injured. In 2 moves, the three of them were completely defeated. They were all injured by Yixing. At this time, Ma Bao, who was slightly injured, had already gotten up from the ground and rushed to the door. If the door was open, he could rush out of the dormitory in the blink of an eye. Unfortunately, they had locked the door. Before Ma Bao could use his identity card to open the door, Yixing was already behind him. He grabbed his collar and slapped Ma Bao back. With Yixing blocking the door, the other three in the dormitory were like turtles in a jar. At this time, the three of them were no longer arrogant. Only fear and shock remained in their eyes. They never imagined that Yixing's strength had reached such a level. Yixing walked step by step toward the three of them. Niedong supported himself against the wall and stood up. He looked at Yixing with fear and said sternly, "What are you trying to do?" Yixing's eyes were cold. "Didn't Xiong Qisheng tell you that I'm very dangerous?" As soon as he finished speaking, Yixing's figure flashed and appeared in front of Niedong. Yixing hit Niedong's mute acupoint and then, meridian cutting palm. Niedong's eyes widened. The intense pain in his body almost made his eyeballs pop out. He was sweating profusely. However, with his Pu acupoint hit, Niedong could not scream no matter how much pain he was in. He could only see the shock, pain, and fear in his eyes. Wu Yuan and Ma Bao were even more terrified than Niedong. They were about to scream for help when Yixing hit their mute acupoints with 2 fingers. Then, with a cold flash, the dagger in Niedong's hand was snatched away by Yixing. He slit their throats. They immediately felt the sharp aura on their necks, which made their hair stand on end. "Do you want to live or die?" Yixing asked with a smile on his face. Yixing's smile did not make them feel at all friendly. They only felt danger. They nodded repeatedly. Obviously, they wanted to live. Yixing first cut his shoulder with the dagger. Blood immediately flowed out and dyed his clothes red. He hit the wound's acupoint to stop the bleeding. Then, he put Wu Yuan and Ma Bao's hands together and stuffed the dagger into their hands. He glanced at Niedong and said, "Kill him and you'll live. I'll give you 3 breaths. If you don't, he'll live and you'll die." Wu Yuan and Ma Bao shook their heads repeatedly. Their eyes were filled with fear. Yixing looked at the two with a smile and started counting. 1, 2. When he said 2, the smile on Yixing's face disappeared. It was replaced by a solemn killing intent. His gaze also became sharp. Wu Yuan and Ma Bao's hands were trembling. They looked at each other and saw the struggle in each other's eyes. 3. Yixing's voice was cold and indifferent. Whoosh! At this moment, Wu Yuan and Ma Bao felt a terrifying killing intent from Yixing. They did not dare to hesitate. Both of them held their daggers and stabbed Niedong in the heart. Niedong died silently. His eyes were wide open. He clearly did not expect that he would die like this. Seeing Niedong's terrifying gaze, Wu Yuan and Ma Bao retreated at the same time. Their faces were filled with panic and fear. Yixing said from the side, "Ma Bao was kicked out of the gifted class, so he went berserk in the dormitory. He ambushed the 3 of us and tried to kill us. All 3 of us were injured and almost lost our lives. In order to protect ourselves, we had no choice but to resist Niedong and accidentally killed him. Am I right? Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were like drowning people who grabbed onto a piece of wood. Their eyes lit up and they nodded repeatedly. Chapter 94. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo killing Ye Dong with their own hands was equivalent to showing their loyalty to Yi Xing. The two of them didn't dare to reveal the truth. Otherwise, Yi Xing would naturally be punished. However, the two of them were the ones who killed Ye Dong, so their punishment would be even heavier than Yi Xing's. Their lives might even be in danger. The only way was to agree with Yi Xing's statement and say that Ye Dong was possessed by a demon and went berserk in the dormitory. He ambushed them, and they retaliated by mistake. Only then would they be punished lightly by the academy. Yi Xing unsealed their mute acupoints and said, "What did Xianxia tell you? Tell me everything." Xianxia wasn't just a student of the advanced genius class. He was also an 8-star heavenly mandate genius and the vice principal's disciple. Even now, the two of them were still afraid of Xianxia and didn't dare to betray him. Yi Xing said, "Your lives are still in my hands. Do you think you can live if you don't make things clear?" Wu Yuan and Ma Bo glanced at each other. They both knew that Yi Xing wasn't someone easy to deal with. Now that their lives were in Yi Xing's hands, if they didn't make things clear and let him feel at ease, Yi Xing wouldn't let them off. "Xiong wants us to kill you in the dormitory and say that you were expelled from the gifted class and went berserk. You ambushed the three of us in the dormitory. The three of us fought back together and killed you by mistake. This way, we'll only receive a lighter punishment from the academy. After this, Senior Xiong promised to transfer us back to the gifted class as soon as possible." Senior Brother Yi, you know Senior Xiong's connections in the academy. We betrayed him and he will definitely take revenge. We're willing to follow Senior Brother Ye's lead and ask for your protection. Since they had decided not to listen to Xianxia, they naturally had to stand with Yi Xing. Moreover, the two of them had witnessed Yi Xing's terrifying strength and were truly shocked in their hearts. It could be said that they were sincerely convinced of Yi Xing's strength. They were also very optimistic about Yi Xing's future. Perhaps in the future, Yi Xing would really achieve great things and they would be able to benefit from it. Yi Xing had little influence in the Purple Mountain Institute. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were in the same dormitory as him. If he could use them, it would be for the best. Yi Xing nodded and said, "Since you are on my side, I will naturally not let you be harmed by Xianxia. However, if you want me to trust you, this is not enough. You have to write down what Xianxia said to you, sign it, and give it to me. If you listen to me, this proof of loyalty will never be seen by anyone. Otherwise, you know what will happen. Yes, we will listen to Senior Brother Yi." Although they were still somewhat unwilling in their hearts, since they had made a decision, they naturally could not be half-hearted. They could only write down a true proof of loyalty. The matter of Ye Dong going crazy in the dormitory and sneaking up on Yi Xing, Wu Yuan, and Ma Bo, only to be mistakenly killed by the three of them, quickly spread throughout the Purple Mountain Institute. A fight between new students, no matter how fierce it was a small matter. However, once a life was lost, it was a big matter. The entire institute was alarmed. Although there were students who died every year in the Purple Mountain Institute, some of them died in fights, this was the first time someone had died on the first day of school. "Are you sure what you said is the truth? Ye Dong really went crazy in the dormitory? Sneak attacked you? If there is any falsehood, not only will you be punished for murder, but you will also be punished for bullying your superiors." The teacher in charge of Ordinary Class 10, Cui Haoren, looked sternly at Yi Xing, Wu Yuan, and Ma Bo as he interrogated them. On the side, there were many other teachers who were eyeing Yi Xing and the other two like tigers watching their prey. Moreover, there were many students nearby who were watching. Even students from the genius class had rushed over after hearing the news. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were nervous, but Yi Xing's expression was calm as he said, "Ye Dong was still brooding over being eliminated from the genius class and harbored a grudge against me. As soon as we entered the dormitory, he launched a sneak attack on me. Fortunately, this student dodged quickly and only received a dagger wound on my shoulder. Otherwise, this student would already be a dead man if he slit my throat." Yi Xing's words were false but true. Thus, he spoke with great confidence and conviction. After that, it was thanks to Wu Yuan and Ma Bo's help that I managed to escape from Nie Dong's hands. However, Nie Dong was too strong. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo couldn't bear to fight to the death at first and were also heavily injured by Nie Dong. In the end, we could only fight with our lives on the line. Nie Dong couldn't withstand the combined forces of the three of us and was accidentally killed by us in a battle of life and death, resulting in a tragedy. Wu Yuan also nodded and said, this student was heavily injured by Nie Dong and was almost stabbed in the heart by his dagger. Fortunately, senior brother Yi injured Nie Dong with his pulse-severing palm and I managed to snatch the dagger back. At that time, I panicked and stabbed forward. At that time, I didn't intend to stab Nie Dong's heart, so this student stopped halfway because, Ma Bo continued, because when Nie Dong was injured by senior brother Ye's pulse-severing palm, his body paused for a moment and he was hit by a few punches from me. His body hit the wall and bounced back. Unfortunately, he hit the dagger in Wu Yuan's hand, right at his heart. He died instantly. We wanted to save him, but it was already too late. Naturally, Yi Xing and the other two had already planned out their excuses. Their words were watertight and he finally concluded. Nie Dong was our roommate, but he was accidentally killed by the three of us. Although he was the one who injured us first, the three of us still blame ourselves and are willing to accept the Academy's punishment. The wounds on Nie Dong's body and the dagger that pierced his heart were reasonable and without any flaws. Almost everyone believed the three of them. However, there was one person who didn't believe them. Xianxia said loudly, "Liar, they're lying. Nie Dong was deliberately killed by them." Nie Dong and the other two were under Xianxia's orders. When he heard that Nie Dong was dead, he naturally rushed here. Because Nie Dong and the other two were under his orders, his heart was as clear as a mirror. Yi Xing and the other two were lying. In the face of Xianxia's yelling, Yi Xing sneered in his heart and said, "Teacher Cui, I'm telling the truth. However, I'm curious as to why Nie Dong would suddenly go berserk. Could it be that he was under someone's orders to kill the three of us, so he pretended to go berserk so that he could kill us on purpose?" Yi Xing's words immediately shut Xianxia up. If the Academy found out that a senior genius class student had ordered a new student to kill someone on purpose, it would definitely be a big deal. Even if Xianxia's master was the vice dean, it would be difficult for him to escape punishment. However, this alone wouldn't be enough to kill Xianxia. Moreover, Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were Yi Xing's people now. Yi Xing naturally wouldn't reveal this matter. It was enough to just warn Xianxia. Nie Dong's actions were indeed strange, but Cui Haoran didn't want to look into it. Even if Yi Xing was telling the truth, the person who could order Nie Dong to do this was no ordinary person. It wouldn't be good for anyone if this matter was blown out of proportion. Cui Haoran said, "The Academy will investigate this matter. However, no matter what, you will not be able to escape punishment for accidentally killing a fellow student. Yi Xing, Wu Yuan, Ma Bo, you will be punished to clean the library for a month. Are you willing to comply?" Clean the library? Yi Xing was instantly overjoyed. The library of the Zishan Academy should contain martial arts manuals, right? Student obeys. Yi Xing said. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo naturally didn't dare to object. Cui Haoran said, "Well, the library has been cleaned today. From tomorrow onwards, it will be handed over to the three of you for a month. The Academy is clear about rewards and punishments. Students of the ordinary class can receive one upper-grade accumulating star pill every month. The other students have already received it. Only the few of you from the gifted class haven't received it yet. Now each of you can receive one." While speaking, Cui Haoran had already taken out 5 upper-grade accumulating star pills. Not only Yi Xing and the other two, but also the 2 students of dormitory 174 who were eliminated from the gifted class had not received it yet. The 2 students walked out of the crowd and received a upper-grade accumulating star pill from Cui Haoran along with Yi Xing and the other 2. Yi Xing was overjoyed. Originally, he was about to step into the 6th stage of the martial Dao. With this upper-grade accumulating star pill, he would be able to break through immediately. "Yi Xing, my brother died because of you. I want to fight with you on the duel stage. As soon as Yi Xing received the upper-grade accumulating star pill, someone in the crowd called out his name and shouted. Yi Xing looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young man of about 18 years old coming out of the crowd. The freshmen of the Purple Mountain Academy were generally 15 or 16 years old. There were not many 17 years old. An 18-year-old youth was even rarer. Generally, the students of the advanced class who had been in the academy for 3 years were at this age. For example, Xianxia was now in his early 18 years old. 3 years ago, he entered the Purple Mountain Academy at the age of 15. This person and Nie Dong did not look alike at all. Yi Xing did not realize that he and Nie Dong were brothers. He asked, "Who are you?" "Zhou Jianhong?" He is at the peak of the 6th stage of the martial Dao. He is almost the strongest among all the freshmen of the ordinary class. Zhou Jianhong is a member of the Zhou family of the county city. The Zhou family is a martial arts family with a 9th stage Grand Master. How can he be Nie Dong's brother? The crowd immediately exclaimed. Nie Dong came from an ordinary city, while Zhou Jianhong was a descendant of the Zhou family of the county city. It was difficult to connect the two. Although the Purple Mountain Academy had many spots in the county city, there were many martial arts families in the county city. Many of them were Grand Master or Martial Grandmaster level martial arts families. Their descendants were outstanding, so the competition was fierce. 3 years ago, Zhou Jianhong was only at the 5th stage of the martial Dao and did not get a spot. Now, he was at the peak of the 6th stage of the martial Dao. He could be considered one of the strongest students in this cohort. However, he was already 18 years old, so he was too old to enter the gifted class. In the ordinary class, Zhou Jianhong was a tyrant. In just a little over a day, he had already taught 5 students from ordinary cities a lesson. He was famous for his prowess. Zhou Jianhong strode towards Yi Xing and said, "My mother is a member of the Nie family of Jinshui City. Nie Dong is my cousin. Although he was mistakenly killed by you, I will still seek justice for him." Yi Xing did not know whether Nie Dong was Zhou Jianhong's biological cousin or a distant cousin. In any case, he was not afraid of a fight. Moreover, he was alone in the academy, so he needed a name to intimidate the small fry. Zhou Jianhong's cultivation was very high, so he could use him to make a name for himself. Yi Xing nodded. "I will fight you." Chapter 95. In the academy, there were 2 types of arenas. One was the duel arena and the other was the life and death arena. The duel arena determined victory and defeat, while the life and death arena determined life and death. Most of the students fought in the duel arena. Only very few people fought in the life and death arena. Only those with great hatred would fight in the life and death arena. Seeing Yi Xing agree, Zhou Jianhong laughed. He didn't look sad or angry because of Nie Dong's death. Zhou Jianhong said, "Yi Xing, since you want to fight in the duel arena, you should have some prizes. Otherwise, it will be a waste of effort." Yi Xing couldn't help but find it funny. Just now, he said that because of his cousin Nie Dong's death, he wanted to fight with Yi Xing on the duel arena. Now, it turned out to be a waste of effort. So what he said just now was just an excuse. His real intention was to make a bet with Yi Xing. Moreover, Yi Xing also understood why Zhou Jianhong chose to challenge him when Nie Dong's death was related to Wu Yuan and Ma Bo. It should be because Zhou Jianhong saw that he was only at the 5th layer of the martial path, the lowest among the 3. Yi Xing smiled and said, "What do you want to bet on?" Zhou Jianhong's eyes flashed and said, "Star accumulating pill. Whoever loses will give the other party a star accumulating pill." The academy ignored all gambling between students. The world of martial arts was full of danger. The academy was only responsible for teaching and some necessary discipline. It didn't restrict students from fighting in the arena. On the contrary, in order to improve the combat skills of the students, the academy also encouraged the students to duel in the ring and gamble on accumulating star pills. The academy had already distributed them to the students, and whether the students ate them or lost them to others, it didn't matter. Some students sighed. Zhou Jianhong is going to win another student's star accumulating pill. When Yi Xing heard these words, he immediately reacted. Zhou Jianhong should have more than one accumulating celestial pill on him and spoke up. It's not easy to enter the battle ring. How can one accumulating celestial pill be enough? I have 3 here, do you dare to bet together? Yi Xing only had one accumulating celestial pill. However, if he used Wu Yuan and Ma Bo's accumulating celestial pills as his gambling capital, it wouldn't be a problem. He only had a cultivation at the 5th heavenly layer, so a high-rank accumulating star pill would be of great use to him. So, why wouldn't he be happy to earn 2 more accumulating star pills? How could Zhou Jianhong put Yi Xing, a level 5 martial artist, in his eyes? Hearing this, his eyes lit up. Originally, he wanted to challenge Wu Yuan and Ma Bo after defeating Yi Xing. Of course, the reason was that his cousin Ye Dong had died because of them, and he wanted to seek justice. Now that Yi Xing was willing to bet 3 pills with him, it was exactly what Zhou Jianhong wanted. It would save him the trouble of having to fight 3 times in a row. Not only would it be tiring, but it would also be troublesome. Zhou Jianhong cracked a smile, revealing 2 rows of snow-white teeth. All right, I'll bet you 3. After saying that, he took out 3 accumulating star pills to prove that he had them. The dueling platform was not far away, so the 2 quickly went up to the battle ring. Because of Nie Dong's death, the audience for this duel was not only large but also very comprehensive. A large number of students gathered here, as well as many deacons and teachers of the academy. On the battle ring, Zhou Jianhong slowly drew his sword and said with a smile, "Country bumpkin from the county city, remember this young master's name, Zhou Jianhong. Your 3 high-rank accumulating star pills belong to me, Zhou Jianhong, huh?" Zhou Jianhong's smile was very bright, but Yi Xing also had a smile on his face. Although he didn't smile as brightly as Zhou Jianhong, he was also in a very good mood. Yi Xing said, "I can't wait to get the 3 high-rank accumulating star pills in your hands, ha! You also remember this young master's name, Yi Xing. No more nonsense, let's get started." Among the students present, except for a few who came from Azure Sky City, no one knew about Yi Xing's deeds. Seeing him, a 5th-layer martial artist, say the same words as Zhou Jianhong, they all unconsciously pursed their lips. He really doesn't know life from death. Many students secretly said in their hearts. On the battle ring, Zhou Jianhong's smile disappeared. A country bumpkin from an ordinary city dared to be so arrogant in front of him, which really made him angry. The other party was eliminated from the gifted class, so his potential and strength were obviously very ordinary. Zhou Jianhong shouted, "Country bumpkin, I'll let you broaden your horizons. I'll defeat you with 1 sword." As soon as his voice fell, a sword light, like a beam of moonlight, broke through the air in an instant and stabbed in front of Yi Xing. It had to be said that Zhou Jianhong's swordsmanship was very high. Although this sword did not stab at Yi Xing's vital points and was not ruthless, it was fast and accurate. The reason why it was not ruthless was because it was not a battle to the death. Zhou Jianhong's goal was to injure Yi Xing, not to assassinate him. However, just as the sword light was about to stab Yi Xing's body, Yi Xing suddenly stepped on the Big Dipper and his body was like a string of afterimages as he retreated backward. The tip of the sword seemed to have stabbed, but it also seemed like it did not. It stabbed at the edge of the afterimage. When Yi Xing's figure had completely retreated to the side, the crowd realized that the sword did not stab at all. Not only was Yi Xing not injured, but even his clothes were not torn. This made the faces of the students change. Yi Xing was only a 5th-layer martial artist, but he actually had such a brilliant movement technique. Zhou Jianhong's expression was very ugly. He said that he would defeat Yi Xing with 1 sword, but in the end, his sword did not even touch the corner of Yi Xing's clothes. Swish, cold light flashed and linked together. Zhou Jianhong continued to attack Yi Xing with his sword, each strike faster than the last. Yi Xing stepped on the Big Dipper and dodged the attacks by a hair's breadth. He kept counting 1 slash, 2 slashes, 3 slashes. Soon, he counted to 10 strikes, but his opponent's strikes still missed. Zhou Jianhong did not pursue speed, and each strike was faster than the last. However, because of the anxiety in his heart, the energy in each strike was multiplied. When Yi Xing counted to 20 strikes, Zhou Jianhong was already panting. Suddenly he realized that he had been tricked by Yi Xing. If he blindly attacked, he would die of exhaustion before Yi Xing could counterattack. Zhou Jianhong immediately withdrew his sword and retreated. He took a defensive stance and shouted, "You only know how to dodge with your movement technique. What kind of hero are you? Try attacking if you have the guts." Seeing that his opponent was no longer tricked, Yi Xing could only take the initiative to attack. In any case, his opponent had been attacking wildly before and was not in a good state. Furious Steel Fist. Yi Xing wore a metal glove and punched out. The fist momentum was monstrous and the power was terrifying. The Furious Steel Fist of the perfection of martial arts. Everyone raised their eyebrows at him. Even the older generation of 6th-level martial artists found it extremely difficult to cultivate the low-grade martial arts to the perfection of martial arts. Yi Xing was so young, but he had cultivated the Furious Steel Fist to the perfection of martial arts? Yi Xing performed the Furious Steel Fist and punched several times in a row. Zhou Jianhong was shocked by his momentum and was attacked by his fist force. He retreated again and again. Yi Xing did not want to fight for a long time. After 3 punches, he immediately changed his martial arts technique. His fist turned into 1,000 shadows. Zhou Jianhong only felt a blur in front of his eyes. The sword in his hand was hit to the side. Then, there was a pain in his chest. He was hit by a punch and his whole person was suddenly blasted out of the ring. Yi Xing came to the edge of the ring and waved to Zhou Jianhong, "You let me win." "Student Zhou Jianhong, 3 upper-grade accumulating star pills, give it to me." Zhou Jianhong's face was red. He, a martial artist at the peak of 6th level, was defeated by a 5th-level martial artist from an ordinary city? Not to mention Zhou Jianhong, most of the students around were stunned and shocked. Obviously, they did not expect this result. Many teachers and school deacons were also surprised and nodded repeatedly. They expressed surprise and appreciation for Yi Xing's strength. Under the watchful eyes of the public, Zhou Jianhong naturally could not act shamelessly. He threw 3 upper-grade accumulating star pills to Yi Xing and immediately left. He did not want to make a fool of himself here. Yi Xing got 3 upper-grade accumulating star pills and also returned to the dormitory with Wu Yuan and Ma Bo. He would clean the library tomorrow. He had nothing to do today, so he could go back and use the accumulating star pills to break through the 6th level of martial arts. Looking at Yi Xing's back, the students were shocked. Most of them had no grievances with Yi Xing, nor did they have any interest in him. They were all shocked by Yi Xing's powerful strength. In the hearts of the students in the ordinary class, Yi Xing was already one of the strongest among the freshmen. Many people even worshipped him. The strong naturally had admirers, and Yi Xing was one of the strongest among the freshmen. However, Xianxia looked at Yi Xing's back with hidden malice in his eyes. Although he forced Yi Xing to the ordinary class, he was completely defeated in the first confrontation with Yi Xing. Not only was Yi Xing not killed by Nie Dong and the other 2, but Nie Dong died. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo even turned to Yi Xing's subordinates. Yi Xing and the other 2 received a very light punishment. They only had to clean the library for a month. Moreover, Yi Xing could be said to be doing very well in the common class. Not only did he earn a few more high-grade medicinal star pills, which were beneficial to the improvement of his cultivation, but he also became very famous. Among the students of the common class, he became a popular figure, admired by others, and had boundless glory. All of this made Xianxia feel very uncomfortable. "Yi Xing, I'll let you be glorious this time. I'll definitely make you die without a burial place." Xianxia thought fiercely. Dormitory 175. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo stood in front of Yi Xing. Neither of them took the star-accumulating pill that Yi Xing brought back. A star-accumulating pill won't improve our cultivation by much, but it's very beneficial to Senior Brother Yi. "Senior Brother Yi, please take it." Yi Xing easily defeated Zhou Jianhong, which made the 2 feel that Yi Xing's future was extraordinary. Following Yi Xing would definitely benefit them in the future. Now, they naturally wanted to show their loyalty. Yi Xing nodded and said, "All right, I'll accept your star-accumulating pill." In the future, you will definitely benefit from it. You can go out first. I'm going to go into seclusion to break through to the 6th stage of the martial Dao. While he was in seclusion, Yi Xing was still worried. The two of them were also in the dormitory. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo left the dormitory. Yi Xing immediately took a star-accumulating pill to refine and absorb it. The medicinal efficacy of the upper-grade star-accumulating pill was many times stronger than that of the middle-grade star-accumulating pill. Yi Xing immediately felt an incomparably surging star force when he swallowed it. Yi Xing immediately operated Qingyuan art to quickly absorb and refine it. As time passed, the 5th star ring in Yi Xing's dantian became brighter and brighter. The 6th star ring was faintly discernible. About an hour later, the 6th star ring was finally completely revealed. Yi Xing's cultivation had broken through and officially stepped into the 6th stage of the martial Dao. With the breakthrough in cultivation, the restriction on the internal strength in the body instantly disappeared. The internal strength was no longer restricted to the flesh and began to spread to the skin. There was a lot of room for improvement. Chapter 96. When Yi Xing and Zhou Jianhong fought, Wei Qingxian was not at the Zishan Academy, but at the Zishan Marquis residence. Her talent was shocking, and the academy was not sure if her destiny was 9 stars or higher. According to the usual practice, students with a 9-star destiny would have to go to the Zishan Marquis residence for another test. This was because only Zishan Marquis had a higher grade blood fate stone. Wei Qingxian went to the Zishan Marquis residence to see the legendary martial saint, Zishan Marquis. The Marquis residence was vast, and Wei Qingxian was in the residence. Other than her, there was only Grandmaster Mu Feng. After the deacon sent her to the Marquis residence, it was Grandmaster Mu Feng who received her and brought her here. Yi Xing did not want to rely on others, so he did not go to the Marquis residence to ask Mu Feng for help even after he was eliminated from the gifted class. But Wei Qingxian saw Mu Feng and naturally reported everything. Hearing this, Mu Feng smiled faintly. Other than the Marquis, no one can interfere with the matters of the academy. I am also powerless, but I feel that it is not a bad thing for Yi Xing to go to the ordinary class. His strength is shocking, and there may be people in the gifted class who can suppress him, but in the ordinary class, he will definitely stand out. The achievements of the ordinary class's top students are not lower than those of the gifted class. Wei Qingxian still wanted to say something, but Mu Feng had already stood up. The Marquis is here. At this time, an 18 or 19-year-old young man pushed a wheelchair out from the back room of the residence. A middle-aged man sat in the wheelchair. The young man's aura was vigorous, as deep as the sea. Compared to the gifted class's teacher Mo Tsunghai, his aura was even stronger, causing Wei Qingxian to be secretly shocked. As for the middle-aged man, his hair was slightly gray, and he did not seem young. But looking at his face, he did not seem to be 40 years old. His appearance was dignified and very heroic, but there was a trace of sadness in his expression. There was no aura of an expert, and he seemed more like an ordinary person. However, Wei Qingxian was able to determine that the ordinary person on the wheelchair who looked valiant but did not have the aura of an expert was Zishan. Although the young man pushing the wheelchair had an imposing aura and was extremely powerful, it was impossible for Zishan to push the wheelchair for someone else. Marquis. Mu Feng bowed to the front. The middle-aged man in the wheelchair gently nodded. He was indeed Zishan. Student Wei Qingxian greets Zishan. Wei Qingxian immediately stood up and saluted. Although the fact that Zishan was sitting in a wheelchair surprised her, she was still excited to see this martial saint whom she had heard of many times. Feng, go take the test. Zishan nodded towards Wei Qingxian, then instructed the young man behind him. Wang Feng, the absolute genius of the Wang family of the prefecture capital, Martial Saint Tianming, had not entered the Purple Mountain Institute. At a young age, he had been accepted by Purple Mountain Ho as a personal disciple, and later adopted as his son. Now, Wang Feng was only 18 years old, about the same age as the students of the Purple Mountain Institute's advanced genius class, but his cultivation was already at the peak of the 9th rank. Compared to Xianxia, It was like comparing the light of a firefly to the light of the moon. Even the most talented student in the advanced genius class was not worth mentioning in front of Wang Feng. There was no comparison at all. Wang Feng was only respectful toward Xianxia, but ignored Mu Feng and Wei Qingxian. His expression was indifferent, but his heart was arrogant. He walked to Wei Qingxian's side, waved his hand, and a blood destiny stone appeared on the table next to Wei Qingxian. Wei Qingxian was surprised. Only now did she notice that Wang Feng was wearing a ring with a star engraved on it. It should be the legendary star ring that had its own space inside. Ignorant. Wang Feng secretly said to himself at the surprise in Wei Qingxian's eyes. Wang Feng retracted his hand and placed it behind his back. He then said, "Let's begin. Let's see if you have the warrior sage destiny." Wei Qingxian looked at the blood destiny stone on the table, which seemed to be no different from the blood destiny stones that were tested in the past. She reached out and pressed her hand on the blood destiny stone. All of a sudden, a strong red light shone and the star slots lit up one after another. The intensity of the red light and the speed at which the star slots lit up made Xianxia's eyes move a little, and he became more alert. In just 3 blinks of an eye, all 9 star slots lit up, and the red light became more and more intense until it was blinding. Immediately afterwards, there were new changes. In the blink of an eye, the light in the first star slot turned from red to orange. At this moment, Wang Feng, who had been indifferent, finally had a change of expression. Only the warrior sage destiny could attract his interest. He took another look at Wei Qingxian. Mu Feng nodded secretly with a smile on his face. He had long guessed that Wei Qingxian had more than 9 stars, and now, it was confirmed. After the first star slot turned orange, the changes did not stop. Soon, the light in the second and third star slots turned orange one after another. When the fourth star slot turned orange, Wang Feng's expression changed again and he seemed to be moved. Ordinary destiny stars were divided into 9 stars, just like the warrior sage destiny stars. The first 3 stars were the beginner warrior sage destiny stars, the middle 3 stars were the intermediate warrior sage destiny stars, and the last 3 stars were the advanced warrior sage destiny stars. Wang Feng was extremely arrogant and regarded the geniuses of Zishan County as nothing. Even when Wei Qingxian had the warrior sage destiny stars, he was only a little interested because he had a 5-star destiny star, which belonged to the intermediate warrior sage destiny stars. Wei Qingxian's destiny star had also reached the intermediate warrior sage destiny stars and could compete with Wang Feng. Hence, he was naturally moved. However, Wei Qingxian's destiny star was still not fully displayed, and the red light in the star slots continued to turn orange. In the blink of an eye, there was a change. When the red light in the 7th star slot turned orange, Wang Feng's face was already full of shock. The 7-star warrior sage destiny stars were already considered advanced. Not only were they 2 stars higher than Wang Feng's destiny stars, but they were also of a higher level. Seeing that Wei Qingxian's destiny stars were so high, Mu Feng was both shocked and surprised. At this moment, even Xianxia was moved. Xianxia's destiny stars were the advanced warrior sage destiny stars. The red light on the blood life stone was unstoppable. Soon, the 8th and 9th star slots turned orange too. At this point, the red light on the blood life stone had completely disappeared and was replaced by an orange light. The orange light was so intense that it was not inferior to the previous red light at all. A look of surprise flashed in Xianxia's eyes as his heart trembled. This meant that Wei Qingxian's destiny stars could be even higher. At this moment, Xianxia's eyes glowed with excitement. On the other hand, Mu Feng stared at the blood life stone with a slight pain in his eyes, but he was also extremely surprised. Although he had guessed that Wei Qingxian's destiny stars were very high, he never expected it to be at such a level. A 9-star orange destiny star was the peak of the warrior sage destiny stars, which was only higher than Xianxia's. Wang Feng also never expected that Wei Qingxian's destiny stars were not only higher than his, but also much higher than his. His heart was filled with excitement, and when he looked at Wei Qingxian again, he found her to be extremely pleasing to the eye. He was no longer as indifferent as before. Seeing that the blood life stone maintained its 9-star orange light and did not change, Wei Qingxian retracted her hand. The blood life stone immediately dimmed, but Wei Qingxuan's light did not dim. The other three all had a whole new level of respect for her. Zishanho said, "Very good, Wei Qingxian, your destiny stars are higher than I expected. From today onwards, you can directly enter the advanced genius class and enjoy special treatment. Furthermore, I will give you a good fortune in the future." Wei Qingxian gracefully bowed. "Many thanks, Zishanho." Wang Feng, who had already put away the blood life stone, was surprised. With Wei Qingxuan's talent, Zishanho actually did not accept her as a disciple? If Wei Qingxian was accepted as a disciple by Zishanho, then the two of them would be intimate and improve their relationship. However, Zishanho would not allow Wei Qingxian to remain as a student at Zishan Academy because it would destroy the confidence of the other geniuses. Thinking that there would not be many opportunities to meet in the future, Wang Feng did not want to miss out on a girl with such high talent. He immediately asked Zishanho for instructions. "Godfather, I have a presumptuous request, and I hope Godfather can fulfill it." Zishanho valued Wang Feng very much, otherwise he would not have accepted him as a personal disciple and then adopted him as a son. Wang Feng rarely asked him for requests, but as long as he did, Zishanho would always agree. He nodded and said, "Speak." Wang Feng said, "I fell in love with junior sister Wei at first sight, and I cannot control my feelings. I wish to make her my life partner, and I hope Godfather can fulfill it." Wang Feng was indeed moved by Wei Qingxian. The main reason was that he had always been high and mighty, and none of the so-called geniuses of the younger generation in the county city could enter his eyes, so he was arrogant in his heart. Suddenly, there was a girl whose destiny stars were higher than his. Immediately, the arrogance in his heart disappeared, and he was filled with admiration. Especially since this girl was a young girl, and he was only an 18-year-old youth. Naturally, he was moved. However, Wang Feng's attitude caused Wei Qingxian to feel disgust. Her face was covered with a veil, and Wang Feng could not even see her face, so how could he fall in love with her at first sight? Moreover, Wei Qingxian was very clear about Wang Feng's indifference towards her before. Now he said that it was love at first sight, and that he could not control his feelings. Who was he trying to fool? He only saw that her destiny stars were very high, and her talent was monstrous. She would have great achievements in the future, so he changed his mind. Displeasure appeared on Zishanho's face, and he said, "Feng, if you want a girl to accompany you for life, how can you rely on the restrictions of your elders? You can only use your own sincerity to move others, and only then will they be willing to be with you. Do not mention this matter again." This was the first time he was rejected by Zishanho, and it was in front of Wei Qingxian. This caused Wang Feng's face to burn, and he said with slight disappointment, "I understand. Lord Ho, this student also has a request." At this time, Wei Qingxian also asked Zishanho for instructions. Zishanho said with interest, "Speak." Wei Qingxian was still thinking about Yi Xing's elimination from the gifted class, so she naturally repeated it. Yi Xing. Zishanho repeated this name. This was already the second time he had heard about Yi Xing. The first time was when Mu Feng had returned to the Marquis estate, and he had specially reported about Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian to Zishanho. Zishanho's point of view on this matter was similar to Mu Feng's. He said, "Low-level heavenly fate cultivators need to put in a lot of effort to become talented, and they also need a strong will. His hindrance is not necessarily a bad thing. I will pay attention to him, but I will not interfere with the matters of the academy. If he is gold, then the academy will not bury him." Chapter 97. Zishan Academy, Library. This was the place where Zishan Academy stored their martial arts manuals. In the first month that Yi Xing, Wu Yuan, and Ma Bo entered Zishan Academy, they didn't attend classes or cultivate. Instead, they were punished to clean the library. The Zishan Academy's library contained a vast amount of martial arts manuals. It was divided into 4 floors, from low-grade martial arts to supreme-grade martial arts. The library's fourth floor contained supreme-grade martial arts manuals. Most of them were incomplete, but there were also complete supreme-grade martial arts manuals. This floor was a forbidden area, and ordinary people were not allowed to enter. Yi Xing and the other two only had to clean the first 3 floors containing low-grade, mid-grade, and high-grade martial arts manuals. The martial arts manuals in the library could be read, but were not allowed to be copied. Every once in a while, the academy's deacons would patrol the library, and when they left, they would be inspected. If someone copied the martial arts manuals in the library, it was a very serious crime, and they would be crippled of their martial arts and expelled from the academy. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were naturally in charge of cleaning the library. Yi Xing was in charge of reading books in the library, and only when the deacons patrolled the library did he pretend to clean. To Yi Xing, the library was a huge treasure. Whether it was the Ye family's martial arts pavilion or the Xiong family's martial arts pavilion, they were like small study rooms in front of the library, not worth mentioning. The martial arts manuals in the Ye family's and Xiong family's martial arts pavilions, excluding the duplicates, did not even amount to 100. But in Zishan Academy's library, there were more than 2,000 martial arts manuals, which was 10 times more than the 2 martial arts pavilions combined. Yi Xing had the super brain, but what he lacked was martial arts knowledge. The more martial arts manuals he read, the higher his understanding of martial arts theory would be, and the easier it would be for him to cultivate martial arts to a higher level. A martial arts manual could be as short as a few hundred words and as long as a few thousand words. Moreover, it involved the human body's meridians, blood, flesh, tendons, bones, skin, as well as the aura of the mountains and rivers, the changes of the sun, moon, and stars, the energy of the earth, water, wind, and fire, and so on. It was difficult to understand. Inferior-grade martial arts and medial-grade martial arts were still fine. The content involved was relatively simple. Normally, cultivators with some comprehension ability could learn by themselves through secret manuals. However, for superior-grade martial arts and above, if there was no one to teach them, it would be like a heavenly book. For other martial artists, even if they were to seclude themselves in the library and read for a year, they wouldn't be able to remember many martial arts secret manuals. Furthermore, as time passed, their memories would gradually fade away. As for the martial arts secret manuals that could be understood, there were even fewer of them. But that was not the case for Yi Xing. Every time he flipped through a book, all of its contents would be scanned into his superbrain and stored there forever. Moreover, through the superbrain's powerful analysis function, it could verify and deduce different martial arts. This allowed Yi Xing to learn all kinds of martial arts secret manuals by himself, provided that his martial arts knowledge could keep up. For example, Yi Xing's martial arts knowledge was better than that of a martial Dao master. Therefore, it was very difficult for a martial Dao master to cultivate a superior-grade martial arts to the mastery realm, but Yi Xing could. A person's ultimate martial arts attainment was related to their level of martial arts knowledge to a certain extent. It was hard to imagine what level Yi Xing's martial arts knowledge would reach if he read all the martial arts secret manuals in the library and comprehended them thoroughly. It was certain that he would have no problem cultivating a superior-grade martial arts to the mastery realm. Yi Xing's reading speed was too fast. Even though he spent at least 2 hours a day pretending to clean, he could still read hundreds of martial arts secret manuals in a day. Yi Xing did not care whether he comprehended them or not. He just scanned them and copied them into his superbrain. He would think about the rest later. At night, Yi Xing cultivated Qingyuan art to improve his cultivation. He had already read the complete Qingyuan art manual in the library. He had already memorized the cultivation chants for the last 3 stages. With his talent in martial arts, it would not take long for him to make progress in Qingyuan art. In just 5 days, Yi Xing went through more than 2,000 martial arts secret manuals on the first 3 floors of the library. He did not read them carefully and did not understand their meanings, but the contents were all scanned into his superbrain. It was easy to scan them into his superbrain, but it was much more difficult to master them. Although it was only a matter of time for him to master them with the superbrain's powerful functions, it still required a lot of time. This was because the amount of knowledge was too large. Once Yi Xing mastered them, even a martial arts grandmaster would not be able to compare with him in terms of martial arts knowledge. Mastering martial arts was not something that could be done in haste. Yi Xing was not in a hurry. Every day, he focused on cultivating martial arts. In the process of cultivation, all kinds of martial arts would naturally be slowly mastered. Time passed slowly, day after day. Yi Xing's martial arts knowledge level improved by leaps and bounds. His actual martial arts attainment also increased every day. One after another, Yi Xing successfully cultivated the inferior grade martial arts to the perfection realm. As Yi Xing's knowledge of martial arts increased, the superbrain deduced and improved the Qingyuan art again. It improved the Qingyuan art to the level of a supreme grade cultivation method, allowing him to open up 15 meridians for cultivation. With the help of the 4 high-grade star accumulation pills, Yi Xing's cultivation base also increased rapidly. When Wei Qingxian learned that Yi Xing was punished, she came to visit Yi Xing several times after cleaning the library. She saw that Yi Xing did not look like he was punished at all. Instead, he was high-spirited and in a good mood. Wei Qingxian was completely relieved. On the 10th day, Yi Xing's Qingyuan art made progress and broke through to the 4th level. The first 3 levels of Qingyuan art opened up the meridians, and the last 3 levels strengthened the internal strength. The 4th level of internal strength made Yi Xing stronger than martial artists of the same level. He was only at the early stage of LV6, but in terms of internal strength, he was stronger than those in the middle stage of LV6. On the 15th day, Yi Xing's cultivation level finally improved and reached the middle stage of LV6. Even a genius would need several months to improve the cultivation level of LV6. Yi Xing's cultivation level improved by a small level in just half a month. It could be seen that the superior grade Qingyuan art was really effective. Of course, the 4 superior grade star accumulating pills also contributed a lot. Without the help of star accumulating pills, his cultivation would be slower. Yi Xing only used half a month to go from the early stage of LV6 to the middle stage of LV6. However, even if another month and a half passed, Yi Xing might not be able to cultivate from the middle stage of LV6 to the late stage of LV6. Yi Xing and the other 2 went to the library every day and stayed in dormitory 175 at night. They did not have much interaction with the other students. The other students also did not have time to pay attention to Yi Xing and the other 2. The month before entering the academy was the busiest month, because after the first month, the academy would conduct an assessment for all the new disciples. The top-ranked students would be given generous rewards to encourage the students to compete for the top spots. Therefore, in the first month, if the new students were not listening to the teacher's lessons, they would be cultivating by themselves. Almost no one paid attention to Yi Xing and the other 2. Not only were the new students busy, but the advanced class students were also very busy. Their assessment was in 3 months and the level of rewards was much higher than the new students' assessment. Naturally, they were also busy cultivating. However, even so, Xiong Qixing did not cause trouble for Yi Xing during this period of time, which surprised him. Although he was surprised, Yi Xing was happy in his heart. It was best if there was no trouble. As time passed, when Yi Xing cultivated more than 100 low-grade martial skills to the perfection stage, he had already taken a small step towards mastering the various martial skills stored in his super brain. The level of his martial skills had increased by a large margin. Yi Xing had a feeling that his middle-grade martial skills seemed to have touched the edge of the perfection stage. Therefore, in addition to cultivating low-grade martial skills, Yi Xing also began to cultivate middle-grade martial skills every day. On the 25th day of his punishment, Yi Xing's martial skills reached another milestone. The middle-grade martial skill, Tiger Stallion Fist, was cultivated to the perfection stage. This was the first time that Yi Xing had cultivated a middle-grade martial skill to the perfection stage. Previously, his 7-star steps and flying swan technique were only at the perfection stage. It was because he had fused a trace of wind force that he was able to stand at the perfection stage. When a middle-grade martial skill reached the perfection stage, it was even easier to cultivate the other middle-grade martial skills. In the next few days, almost every day, There would be 1 or 2 middle-grade martial skills that reached the perfection stage. Yi Xing's martial arts attainment had already reached the level of a martial arts grandmaster. Only a true martial arts grandmaster could easily cultivate a middle-grade martial arts technique to the martial arts grandmaster level. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, it was already the last day of his punishment. In the past month, Yi Xing's knowledge of martial arts and his attainments in martial arts had improved by leaps and bounds. He had undergone a tremendous change. As his martial arts attainments increased, Yi Xing's temperament changed as well. His every move was natural and natural. He looked like a martial Dao master of a generation. At night, in dormitory 175, Yi Xing was sitting cross-legged, cultivating Qingyuan technique. A month had passed, and tomorrow was the day of the assessment. According to the news brought by Wei Qingxian, the progress of the students in the gifted class had been very fast. Many 8-star Destiny Realm students were originally at the peak of the 6th level. However, with the help of the high-grade star accumulating pill and the guidance of the 9th level martial Dao master, at least 10 of them had broken through to the 7th level and became martial Dao masters. Not only that, under the guidance of the 9th level martial Dao master, the martial skills of the gifted class had also increased rapidly. It was inevitable for them to cultivate their high-grade martial skills to the entry stage. Those with outstanding talent had already cultivated their high-grade martial skills to the lesser success stage, or even beyond that. The assessment was the time for Yi Xing to prove himself. The academy had eliminated him to the ordinary class, so he used this fact to tell everyone who was the real genius. Therefore, regardless of whether it was for the reward of first place or to prove his strength, Yi Xing was determined to obtain first place in this new student assessment. He wanted to defeat all the freshmen in the gifted class. This was his response to the academy eliminating him to the ordinary class. Yi Xing's cultivation was still far from the late stage of the 6th level. He only had 1 night left, so the reason why he was diligently cultivating Qingyuan technique was naturally not to increase his cultivation. It was because his Qingyuan technique was only a step away from the 5th level. If he could break through, his internal energy would be strengthened. This was even better than raising his cultivation to the late stage of the 6th level. Hard work paid off. Yi Xing's Qingyuan technique had broken through to the 5th level. Chapter 98. On the day of the assessment, the Zishan Academy was extremely lively. This was the most important day for the freshmen, and all the freshmen would participate in it. The venue of the assessment was the Academy Square, which had been divided into 20 areas. The competition was divided into 20 groups. The group stage adopted a point system. The first and second place in each group could enter the second stage of the competition for the knockout round. There were 3 rounds in the knockout round to determine the top 20, top 10, and top 5. The top 5 would participate in the points competition, and the 1st to 5th would be ranked according to the winning percentage. As long as the 769 freshmen could rush out of the first stage of the points competition as the top 2 in the group, they would enter the top 40 and receive the Academy's rewards. Of course, the rewards would be different depending on the ranking. The top 40 would be rewarded with 1 upper-grade star accumulation pill, the top 20 would be rewarded with 2 upper-grade star accumulation pills, and the top 10 would be rewarded with 3 upper-grade star accumulation pills. The top 5 would be rewarded even more, divided into 5 ranks. Not only would they be rewarded with upper-grade star accumulation pills, but they would also be rewarded with upper-grade medicinal herbs that could replenish vitality. The 5th would be rewarded with 4 upper-grade star accumulation pills and 1 upper-grade medicinal herb. The 4th would be rewarded with 6 upper-grade star accumulation pills and 1 upper-grade medicinal herb. The 3rd would be rewarded with 8 upper-grade star accumulation pills and 2 upper-grade medicinal herbs. The 2nd would be rewarded with 10 upper-grade star accumulation pills and 2 upper-grade medicinal herbs. The 1st would be rewarded with 12 upper-grade star accumulation pills and 3 upper-grade medicinal herbs. The Academy's rewards were not small, but it was not easy for the students to get the rewards. There were nearly 800 students, but only the top 40 would be rewarded, which was about 20 to 1. Yi Xing, Wu Yuan, and Ma Bo were assigned to the 20th group. In order to prevent the strong from meeting each other in advance, the academy had assigned the strongest 20 students to different groups. Therefore, in each group, there was a seeded student. Among them, 15 were level 7 martial Dao masters, and 5 were peak level 6 martial artists. Although Yi Xing was in the limelight in the ordinary class, he hadn't attended classes for a month. He had been cleaning the library and had been keeping a low profile. The fame he had gained on the first day of school had naturally faded, and he wasn't among the 20 seeded students. The seed student in the 20th group was Feng Yuanming, a student of the gifted class. It was unknown whether Yi Xing's luck was good or bad. His first match in Group 20 was against Feng Yuanming. Or rather, it should be said that Feng Yuanming's luck was bad. As a seeded student, he was afraid that his face would be swollen in the first battle. Go, Yi Xing! When Yi Xing went on stage, he heard Wei Qingxuan's voice. There were too many people just now, so Yi Xing did not notice that Wei Qingxian had also come. Yi Xing winked at Wei Qingxian and smiled confidently. Then he looked around. Wei Qingxian had already been promoted to the advanced genius class. Since she was here, there should be other advanced class students as well. Yi Xing felt that Xiong Qixing should also be here. As Yi Xing expected, he quickly discovered Xiong Qixing's figure. The latter was like a poisonous snake, coldly staring at him from afar. Seeing Yi Xing's gaze, Xiong Qixing's eyes revealed a cruel smile. Intuition told Yi Xing that the other party did not have good intentions. Perhaps, in this assessment, he would meet an opponent specially ordered by Xiong Qixing. Yi Xing secretly paid attention. A cold snort came from the front. Feng Yuanming went on stage. Seeing that Yi Xing did not even look at him, his heart was filled with anger. Feng Yuanming's voice was filled with disdain. I didn't expect to meet a 2-star trash like you in the first round. If you know what's good for you, admit defeat. Otherwise, this daddy will slap you to death. Yi Xing had just gone to look for Xiong Qixing. He did not deliberately look down on the other party, but the other party's words had angered Yi Xing. Yi Xing smiled. 1 slaps. Feng Yuanming's face carried an arrogant smile. 1 slap. Yi Xing nodded. Okay, 1 slap. Yi Xing's tone made Feng Yuanming feel a little strange. It sounded like Yi Xing wanted to slap him? Feng Yuanming still did not understand, but the deacon presiding over the battle had already said, "You can begin. Don't be long-winded." As soon as the deacon's voice fell, Yi Xing's figure flashed and disappeared. An afterimage flashed past and Yi Xing appeared in front of Feng Yuanming. Yi Xing's current 7-star steps had truly been cultivated to perfection. With the addition of a trace of wind force, it was unbelievably fast. Feng Yuanming only felt a blur in front of his eyes. He just understood that Yi Xing's tone just now was indeed about to slap him. Yi Xing had already arrived in front of him and raised his arm to slap him. Slap. Feng Yuanming had clearly pushed his speed to the limit and wanted to dodge backwards. However, with a crisp sound, he felt a sharp pain on his face and his mind instantly went blank. Blood splattered everywhere and broken teeth flew everywhere. As Feng Yuanming spat out blood and broken teeth, he was slapped out of the arena by Yi Xing. Yi Xing had easily defeated Zhou Jianhong, who was at the peak of 6th stage, when his cultivation was at the peak of 5th stage. Now that Yi Xing's cultivation was at the mid-stage of 6th stage, his martial arts attainments had increased by a large margin. Even though Feng Yuanming's strength was higher than Zhou Jianhong's, in the hands of Yi Xing, he was just a character who was sent flying with a slap. The surrounding martial artists who were watching were basically students who had been assigned to 20 groups for the competition. They all gasped and looked at Yi Xing with incomparable fear and reverence. The deacon presiding over the battle also looked at Yi Xing in surprise. A month ago, he had watched Yi Xing and Zhou Jianhong's duel. Now, it seemed that Yi Xing's strength had increased by a lot. In this month, Yi Xing had not attended classes and had been punished to clean the library. However, his strength had increased so quickly. It was really strange. The deacon of Group 20 restrained the surprise in his heart and said, Yi Xing wins. Next match, Yi Xing against Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng was a student of the ordinary class, and his cultivation was at the mid-stage of 6th stage. He immediately admitted defeat. Even the seeded students of Group 20 had been sent flying with a slap by Yixing. Zhaofeng did not dare to make a move. Of course, he admitted defeat to avoid being sent flying with a slap by Yixing. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. After that, Yixing's opponents all chose to admit defeat in every battle, no matter if it was a student of the ordinary class or a student of the genius class. In the group stages, other than the first match against Feng Yuanming, Yixing also made a move. After that, his opponents all admitted defeat. He easily obtained first place in Group 20 and advanced to the second elimination round. As for the second place in Group 20, it was taken by Feng Yuanming. Since the academy had chosen him as a seeded student of Group 20, his strength was indeed not weak. Even if there was a student in Group 20 who was also at the peak of 6th stage, he was still defeated by Feng Yuanming. It was a pity that Feng Yuanming met Yixing, this abnormal battle strength that defied the heavens. Moreover, he had a foul mouth and angered Yixing. Otherwise, he should have been very impressive in the group stages. However, because he had been slapped by Yixing in the first battle, even if Feng Yuanming won all his subsequent battles, he could not feel happy in his heart. Others looked at him as if they were looking at a joke and did not have the slightest bit of respect. Feng Yuanming hated Yixing so much in his heart that his teeth itched, but he did not dare to show it on the surface. Yixing's slap was not light, and it caused his heart to tremble even now. Because there were 20 groups competing at the same time, the group stages did not last for too long. The first and second place of each group had all come out. Those 15 7th-stage masters had all advanced as the first place of their group. The other 4 first places of the group were all at the peak of 6th stage. Only Yixing's cultivation was at the middle of 6th stage. Not only was his cultivation the lowest in the group first place, even the second place of the other 20 groups had the lowest cultivation at the peak of 6th stage, much higher than him. After the first stage of the competition ended, there was a break for a while. The previous division of the square into 20 areas was no longer suitable for the elimination rounds. During the break, the academy redivided the square into 5 areas. There would be 5 elimination rounds at the same time. There would be 20 battles for the advancement of 40 to 20, and there would be a total of 4 rounds. There would be 10 battles for the advancement of 20 to 10, and there would be a total of 2 rounds. During the break, Yixing was naturally together with Wei Qingxian. Yixing, your strength has increased by a lot. The gap between us seems to have widened. Wei Qingxian exclaimed. Your destiny is so high. If I don't work harder, I'll be left behind by you very soon. Yixing smiled faintly. Yixing's superbrain had already scanned Wei Qingxuan's cultivation. She was only a hair's breadth away from the late stage of 6th stage. It was likely that she would break through in the next few days. Wei Qingxian was specially groomed by the Purple Mountain Academy and enjoyed special treatment. Coupled with her high fate, her cultivation would definitely increase like a rocket. Even though Yixing felt that his cultivation was increasing very quickly, compared to Wei Qingxian, it was still slightly inferior. Wei Qingxian smiled embarrassedly. Her fate had surpassed 9 stars. She did not want to hide it from Yixing, but Zishanho had warned her not to reveal her fate to anyone, so she endured it and did not say anything. Therefore, although Wei Qingxian was amazed by Yixing's progress, she was also very happy. She and Yixing had an unspoken agreement to become stronger together. If Yixing fell behind, she would become a peak martial saint in the future. If the gap between them was too big, it would be difficult for them to get along as well as they were now. The break time quickly passed and the square was divided into 5 sections by the academy. When Yixing went up to draw the lots, Wei Qingxian waved her delicate fist and said, "Yixing, I believe in you. You will definitely get first place." Yixing nodded slightly with a confident smile. A trash of the 6th stage wants to get first place, TSK. At this time, a student of the 7th stage of the martial path heard it and said with disdain, "And a trash of a 2-star fate. If he meets me, Jiang Wenlong, I will beat the shit out of him." Yixing narrowed his eyes and a cold light flashed in them. He had already noticed Jiang Wenlong. He was with Xianxia just now. Moreover, other than Jiang Wenlong, there were 4 other students of the 7th stage of the genius class. Xianxia had already looked for them. Chapter 99. Among the 15 freshmen in the 7th stage of the martial Dao, at least 5 of them were in the same group as Xianxia or had an agreement with him. They were all targets that Yixing was wary of. Hanging out with Xianxia was definitely not a good thing for him. At present, Jiang Wenlong's attitude proved this point. Yixing's cold eyes swept over Jiang Wenlong and said, "Jiang Wenlong, right? If we meet later, whoever admits defeat will be a bastard. Let's see who will beat the shit out of who." Jiang Wenlong's eyes flashed a sharp aura and he laughed. "Well, whoever admits defeat will be a bastard." "Trash. You wait, I will beat you until you piss your pants, hee." The nearby students saw Yixing and Jiang Wenlong fighting. Some looked amazed, some sneered. Although they all thought that Yixing's strength was very strong, they didn't think that Yixing could compete with a martial Dao master. The gap between the 7th stage of the martial Dao and the 6th stage of the martial Dao was not just a little bit, but a gap that was difficult to cross. In the first round of the knockout, Yixing and Jiang Wenlong couldn't meet because the rule of drawing lots was that the first in the group would be the second in the group. Yixing and Jiang Wenlong were the first in the group to advance, so they couldn't meet in this round. The names of the second in the group were placed in a wooden box and the first in the group to advance were drawn by the first in the group. When Yixing caught a paper ball and opened it, a strange smile appeared on his face. The name on the paper was Feng Yuanming. It seemed that he and Feng Yuanming had some ill-fated relationship. Not only were they both in the 20th group, but he also had a 1 in 20 chance of being picked by Yixing. When Feng Yuanming found out that his first opponent was Yixing, his face immediately turned bitter. His right cheek was still a little swollen, and now he felt a burning pain. He didn't dare to fight with Yixing again. At this time, Feng Yuanming was in awe of Yixing. Before Yixing could open his mouth, he quickly admitted defeat. Yixing also advanced to the top 20 without making a move. As for the first place in the other groups, none of the 15 7th-tier grandmasters could shake them. As for the other 4 peak 6th-tier grandmasters, one of them was defeated by a 6th-tier grandmaster who had advanced to the second place in the other groups and was eliminated. The top 20 were determined. 15 7th-tier grandmasters, 3 peak 6th-tier grandmasters, 1 peak 6th-tier grandmasters, and 1 intermediate 6th-tier grandmasters. The reward for the 21st to the 40th place was the same, an upper-grade accumulating star pill, so the eliminated students didn't have to compete anymore and directly started the next round. All the eliminated students were excited. They were eliminated and naturally became spectators. The second round of the knockout was the competition between the top 20 and the top 10. In this round, there would be a showdown between martial Dao masters, and some martial Dao masters would be eliminated. The intensity of the battle was much more wonderful and intense than before. Naturally, it was exciting. Yixing, do you dare to be in the same group with me in this round? The academy hadn't arranged the list yet, and the drawing of lots hadn't started yet. Jiang Wenlong shouted and directly called out Yixing. Yixing just planned to deal with Jiang Wenlong when he met him. He didn't expect that the other party was even more anxious than him and pointed out that he wanted to fight with him in this round. However, Yixing didn't have the slightest fear and said, "Why not?" Jiang Wenlong smiled and said to the deacon who presided over the competition, "Deacon, since we are both willing, let's arrange a showdown for this round." Since both parties were willing, the deacon naturally wouldn't interfere and nodded, "Okay." Jiang Wenlong's face revealed a ferocious smile as he stared at Yixing fiercely, like a hound staring at its prey. "Jiang Wenlong, don't be careless and lose the face of us martial Dao masters. You were defeated by a 2-star Heaven's Mandate trash." Beside Jiang Wenlong, a 16-year-old freshman coldly snorted. He was also a martial Dao master. Moreover, he was also the one who was looked for by Xianxia. "How can I be defeated by this trash? At most 3 moves and I'll beat him until he pisses his pants. Bian Chuxing, this trash doesn't need you to teach him a lesson." Jiang Wenlong's face was filled with arrogance as he disdainfully glanced at Yi Xing and said, "That's for the best, but he..." Bian Chuxing sneered and said, "Jiang Wenlong, if you lose, I'll take revenge for you." "Hey, impossible." The other 18 people's names were quickly determined. The 9 students who broke through to the 7th stage of the martial Dao first would draw lots for the other 9. There would be 5 pairs of 7 Dao masters. This was the highlight of this round. The second round of the elimination round had a total of 10 battles. There were only 5 arenas, so it would be divided into 2 rounds. Yi Xing and Jiang Wenlong's battle would take place in the easternmost arena of the first round. Among the 5 battles, 3 of them were between martial Dao masters, which attracted most of the audience's attention. Not many people were watching the battle between Yi Xing and Jiang Wenlong. "Come on, see how I'll beat you until you piss your pants, hee." Jiang Wenlong sneered. His weapon was a long spear. The tip of the spear was shining with a cold light. It was a high-grade weapon. As the saying goes, a month with a stick and a year with a saber, a lifetime with a spear. Spear techniques were the most difficult to master, but once mastered, the power was amazing. "Let's begin." The deacon on the side said, "Die." When the deacon said, "Begin," Jiang Wenlong's temperament changed instantly. His eyes widened, and his momentum was amazing. He shouted loudly. Whoosh! The long spear pierced forward. The spear was dazzling, and it was like a straight white chain bursting out. Whoosh! There was no wind and waves in the air. The air within a radius of 10 feet was stirred up by Jiang Wenlong's piercing, which almost caused the wind. It seemed that Jiang Wenlong had worked hard on his spear. His spear technique was very good. Ordinary level 6 martial artists, even if their cultivation was at the peak of level 6, couldn't block his spear. However, this spear was not a big threat to Yi Xing. Yi Xing had already comprehended a trace of wind. Now that Jiang Wenlong's piercing caused the wind to move, Yi Xing felt the wind. It was as if there were eyes in all directions. How could he be pierced by the latter? Yi Xing stepped on the Big Dipper, and his body moved with the wind. In an instant he floated up. Whether it was Jiang Wenlong or the surrounding audience, they all felt dazzled. When they looked again, Yi Xing was already in midair and stepped on the spearhead. How fast was Jiang Wenlong's spear? Yi Xing was actually able to accurately step on the spearhead at this critical moment. This caused everyone's expressions to change in shock. If he had stepped a little faster and stepped on the front of the spearhead, then this spear would have pierced a big hole in his foot. Unfortunately, in Yi Xing's dictionary, there were no ifs. Since he dared to step on it, it was naturally foolproof. Yi Xing's body looked light, but when he stepped on the spearhead, it was extremely heavy. Immediately, the spearhead sank down and fell to the ground. Too slow. Yi Xing's voice sounded like a slap to Jiang Wenlong's face. While speaking, Yi Xing moved his feet and walked quickly along the spear shaft toward Jiang Wenlong. Jiang Wenlong's expression was shocked, and his body quickly retreated. He instantly withdrew his spear and swept it across his waist. Total annihilation. The spear swept across like a crescent moon, and in an instant, it shot forward with a terrifying momentum. The air seemed to be cut in half by the spear. Yi Xing was in the air and fell to the ground like 1,000 jin. His body leaned back, and the spear cut above his stomach, but it missed again. Too slow. Yi Xing still gave the same evaluation. You're courting death. Feeling the sarcasm in Yi Xing's words, Jiang Wenlong was furious and angrily said, "Strength breaking 1,000 mountains." Jiang Wenlong's body jumped up, and with both hands holding the spear, it was as if he was holding a dragon, and fiercely smashed it to the ground. The spearhead drew a sharp spear light and shot out, cutting everything in front of it in half and slashing toward Yi Xing. This spear had an indomitable momentum, and when the spearhead slashed down, it was enough to cut through everything. Unfortunately, the spear's attack was strong, but its transformation was slow. When the spear fell to the ground, Yi Xing had already disappeared. The spearhead split a large piece of the solid floor, but it did not touch the corner of Yi Xing's clothes. Too slow. Yi Xing's voice rang out, and the content was the same. However, when Jiang Wenlong heard it this time, He did not feel the slightest bit of anger. He only felt his hair stand on end, and his heart was greatly shocked. Yi Xing's voice came from behind him, so close that it sounded like it was ringing in his ear. Jiang Wenlong's move, strength breaking thousand mountains, was too fierce, and at this moment, he was unable to withdraw his spear and counterattack. Without waiting for Jiang Wenlong to dodge, he felt a pain in the back of his head, and Yi Xing's fist had already landed. With a heavy blow to the head, Jiang Wenlong was suddenly stunned. He only felt a buzzing sound in his head, and his body fell forward. After all, Jiang Wenlong was a LV7 martial Dao master, and his internal strength protected his body, so he was not really stunned by Yi Xing's attack. He rushed forward a few steps, felt the wind behind his head, and immediately turned his body. The spear was like a dragon, sweeping in an instant. Still too slow. Yi Xing's voice rang out again, and Jiang Wenlong's hair stood on end. The voice was right in front of him. However, Jiang Wenlong did not see Yi Xing's body, but only saw a sky full of fist shadows. High-grade martial arts technique, Thousand Shadow Fist. Bang bang bang. Not only was Jiang Wenlong punched in the chest, the arm holding the spear was also hit hard, and the long spear in his hand was knocked out of his hand. Even the weapon was knocked out of his hand. Jiang Wenlong was really frightened at this moment, and he used his body movement to the limit to retreat. However, Yi Xing's speed was faster than him. As soon as the Thousand Shadow Fist came out, there were many fist shadows, and Jiang Wenlong's nose and face were swollen. Even if Jiang Wenlong was a LV7 martial Dao master, he could not withstand several blows and was directly knocked to the ground by Yi Xing. His back hit the ground heavily, and the shock made Jiang Wenlong's qi and blood surged. There was a sharp pain in his chest, and blood gushed out of his mouth. Stage of martial arts, wind chasing kick. Yi Xing's leg was like the wind, and as fast as lightning. His body turned over, and his legs smashed down like an iron spear. Bang! Jiang Wenlong was hit by Yi Xing's leg, and his stomach was hit hard. Not only did he suffer serious internal injuries, but he was also beaten to incontinence in an instant, and feces and urine came out. Exclamations were heard everywhere, and the students who watched the battle were shocked. They never expected that Jiang Wenlong, a martial Dao master, would be beaten so miserably by Yi Xing. Chapter 100. Jiang Wenlong suffered such a heavy blow that he almost fainted from the pain. If it was a battle of life and death, Yi Xing could easily take Jiang Wenlong's life. Since it was an assessment, Yi Xing naturally wouldn't be so ruthless. After severely injuring Jiang Wenlong, he retreated. Did I win? Yi Xing asked the shocked administrator. A 6th-stage martial artist had severely injured a 7th-stage grandmaster. The administrator was shocked and lost in thought. He only reacted when Yi Xing asked. In an assessment, one side didn't necessarily lose if they were injured. This was because opponents of similar strength could be injured. The one who was injured first might not necessarily lose in the end. Therefore, only by admitting defeat would one be considered to have lost. If one didn't admit defeat, the battle could continue. The current Jiang Wenlong was obviously unable to admit defeat on his own. However, since he was already injured to this extent, Yi Xing could not continue to attack him. Naturally, he had to let the steward make the decision. When the administrator came back to his senses, he looked at Yi Xing in shock. He nodded and said, "I won. Of course I won." Yi Xing smiled faintly and left the arena. Jiang Wenlong was naturally carried away. At this moment, the students in the other arenas were in an uproar. When they heard the exclamations, they looked over and realized that Jiang Wenlong, who was in the 7th stage of the martial path, had actually been defeated by Yi Xing and was severely injured. The gap between a 6th-stage martial artist and a 7th-stage grandmaster was huge. This result was beyond everyone's expectations. When they heard the news, they were all shocked. All the students regretted not watching the battle between Yi Xing and Jiang Wenlong. They had missed the opportunity to watch a 6th-stage martial artist defeat a 7th-stage grandmaster. Such an opportunity was hard to come by in a lifetime. Luckily, they were still in the middle of the competition. Yi Xing's next opponent would definitely be a 7th-level grandmaster. All the students had already decided in their hearts that they absolutely couldn't miss out on Yi Xing's next battle. The students who had already been eliminated as spectators were naturally here to watch the show. As for the students who hadn't been eliminated, especially those who were at the 7th level of the adept level, their expressions were solemn. They treated Yi Xing as a powerful opponent. Not long after, the other 4 battles also ended one after another. The victors were all 7th-level grandmasters. In particular, the winners in the middle, south, and north arenas were Jing Feitian, Yu Xixue, and Li Yanzhao. All 3 of them had defeated martial Dao masters of the same realm and were equally famous, becoming the hot topic of discussion. As the only girl among the 3, Yu Xixue won the admiration of countless male students and became the most popular student. As for the winner in the West Arena, Ling Fengjue, his opponent was only at the peak of the 6th stage. This was a natural result and was ignored by most of the students. The last 5 matches of the second round of the elimination round soon began. In this round, there were 2 pairs of martial Dao masters, which attracted the attention of the audience. After a fierce battle, the victors of the 2 martial Dao masters were finally decided. One was Bian Chuxing, and the other was Zhao Xingyang. As for the other 3 battles, the opponents of the martial Dao masters were all 6th-level martial artists. These 6th-level martial artists were quite outstanding in the same realm, but they were far inferior in front of the 7th-level masters. Naturally, the 3 martial Dao masters won. At the end of the second round, the top 10 freshmen assessment were decided. They were Jing Feitian, Yu Xixue, Li Yanzhao, Bian Chuxing, Zhao Xingyang, Ling Fengjue, Nen Xinro, Yu Hua, Yang Ping, and Yi Xing. Among the top 10, there were 9 martial Dao masters, and only Yi Xing was a 6th-level martial artist. However, no one had any objection to this. Yi Xing entered the top 10 because of his strength. At least half of the martial Dao masters in the top 10 were very afraid of Yi Xing. However, Yi Xing was not the most popular among the top 10. Jing Feitian, Yu Xixue, Li Yanzhao, Bian Chuxing, and Zhao Xingyang, the 5 7th-level masters who had defeated masters of the same realm, were the real heroes and the most popular candidates for the top 5. After all, Yi Xing's cultivation was his weakness in front of the 7th-level masters. Naturally, the strength of the 5 7th-level masters, including Jing Feitian, was more convincing, and Yi Xing was just more surprising. The assessment entered the 3rd round of the elimination round, and 5 out of 10 would advance. In this round, the 5 people who had defeated masters of the same realm would draw lots. Their targets were Ling Fengjue, Nen Xinro, Yu Hua, Yang Ping, and Yi Xing. Li Yanzhao, Bian Chuxing, Ling Fengjue, and Yu Hua had all come into contact with Xiong Qixing, and their gazes towards Yi Xing were very unfriendly. However, in this round, they did not directly challenge Yi Xing like Jiang Wenlong did. Yi Xing was only a 6th-level martial Dao master. A 7th-level master challenging a 6th-level martial artist was a disgrace. It would be good if he won, but if he lost, it would be really embarrassing. Jiang Wenlong had now become a joke. With this lesson in mind, the other 4 naturally would not take the initiative to challenge Yi Xing. In any case, as long as Yi Xing advanced, there would always be a chance to deal with Yi Xing. After the drawing of lots, the names of the 3rd round were confirmed. Jing Feitian against Ling Fengjue, Yu Xixue against Nen Xinro, Li Yanzhao against Yu Hua, Bian Chuxing against Yang Ping, and Zhao Xingyang against Yi Xing. When the battle venues were confirmed, most of the students ran to the east and west. Very few went to the other 3 venues. The eastern venue was Yu Xixue against Nen Xinro. Among the top 10, only the 2 of them were women. Moreover, they were both beautiful and had high popularity. Zhao Xingyang and Yi Xing were on the west side of the arena. There was no doubt that compared to the duel between martial Dao masters, Yi Xing, a LV6 martial artist, was the most interesting duel among the students. If it weren't for the 2 beauties, Yu Xixue and Nen Xinro, who had attracted a lot of spectators, more than 80% of the students would have run to the western venue. Western venue. Yi Xing and Zhao Xingyang faced off. "I'm not that trash, Jiang Wenlong." Zhao Xingyang glared at Yixing. As an 8-star Destiny Realm genius, Zhao Xingyang was naturally one of the people who mocked Yixing. At that time, he never expected that a 2-star Destiny Realm that he regarded as trash would become his opponent in the assessment. Although Yixing defeated Jiang Wenlong, Zhao Xingyang was still confident. In the previous round, he also defeated a 7th-level martial Dao master. He didn't think that he was weaker than Yixing naturally. Zhao Xingyang didn't dare to look down on Yixing like before. He already regarded Yixing as an opponent on the same level. Yixing's figure was like a mountain. He faintly smiled. There's no difference between the two of you. Zhao Xingyang was furious. Don't think that you can look down on other martial Dao masters just because you defeated Jiang Wenlong. I will let you understand how terrifying a martial Dao master is. Yixing's smile didn't change. I'll be waiting. Around the venue, the students were also discussing. Student A, who do you think will win? Student B, I think it should be Zhao Xingyang. He also defeated a 7th-level martial Dao master in the previous round. Student C, Yixing is already very heaven-defying to be able to rush into the top 10. This is also because of his good luck. Jiang Wenlong seems to be the last to break through to the 7th level. If he met another 7th-level martial Dao master in the previous round, he might not have won. Student D, I think we should ask how long Yixing can last against Zhao Xingyang. Zhao Xingyang was one of the popular candidates for the top 5. The students were very confident in him. On the contrary, they had very little confidence in Yixing. Most of them thought that Yixing would lose this battle. It was just a matter of how long he could last against Zhao Xingyang. The surrounding discussions made Zhao Xingyang extremely proud, and he smiled mischievously. On the other hand, Yixing's figure was still tall and straight, and he was like a mountain that stood firmly in the abyss. The words of the others didn't affect him in the slightest. He wouldn't refute these words. He would only use facts to prove it. Let's start. The deacon on the side ordered. Zhao Xingyang chuckled, and the surrounding temperatures suddenly rose. His 2 palms turned crimson red, as if they were about to burn. Red flame palm. It was a high-grade martial art technique with fire attribute internal force. Its power was amazing. Aren't you fast? Let's see which is faster, your speed or my palm print. Zhao Xingyang sneered. He channeled his internal force and the red color of his palms became more obvious. He slammed his palm toward Yixing. The wind from the palm whistled and the heat wave was like a tide. A red palm print was instantly launched. The palm print wasn't as sharp as the sword qi, but its power was definitely stronger. It was very powerful. Yixing stepped on the Big Dipper and his body was like a phantom. He dodged the palm print attack in an instant. However, before Yixing could counterattack, Zhao Xingyang shouted again, 5 chain seals. Bang 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 bang. In the blink of an eye, Zhao Xingyang launched 5 consecutive palm prints. 5 palm prints were launched at the same time. It was difficult to tell which one was first as they attacked Yixing. The 5 palm prints blocked all of Yixing's escape routes. Yixing's eyes narrowed. His opponent's palm technique restrained his movement technique. However, Yixing's expression was as usual. The corner of his mouth curled up. He relied on more than just his movement technique. Boom! Yixing punched out. In an instant, the roar of a tiger could be heard. An explosive aura instantly surged in all directions like a tide. Unleashing the tiger roar, Yixing advanced courageously like a ferocious tiger descending the mountain, rushing towards Zhao Xingyang. Bang! The red flame palm print was smashed by Yixing's punch. In the blink of an eye, he rushed to Zhao Xingyang. Seeing that Yixing wanted to fight him head-on, Zhao Xingyang was not surprised. His opponent was only at the 6th level of cultivation. In terms of internal force, he was far superior. In a head-on fight, he could heavily injure his opponent in less than 3 moves. Red flame palm. Roaring tiger fist. In an instant, the 2 fists and palms collided. With a loud boom, there was an earth-shattering explosion. The surrounding spectators all widened their eyes in shock. They stared intently at the 2 people in the battle, afraid that they would miss a single moment. After the explosion, Zhao Xingyang's body shook. He immediately took a step back and his expression changed. Take another punch. Yi Xing was invincible. His black hair flew in the wind. He was as powerful as a tiger. He took a step forward and punched out again. The roar of a tiger could be heard in the forest. This is impossible. At this moment, many students exclaimed in shock. In the head-on collision between Yi Xing and Zhao Xingyang, it was Zhao Xingyang who was repelled. This was unbelievable. Chapter 101. The fist and palm collided for the second time. Zhao Xingyang's expression changed again. He took 3 steps back and a trickle of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. Compared to the shock in Zhao Xingyang's eyes, Yi Xing's eyes were full of confidence and high spirits. Compared to defeating his opponent with mysterious movements, he preferred the most direct way to crush his opponent. In a head-on collision, every punch would land on flesh and blood would be spilled. This was the only way to stimulate Yi Xing's boiling blood. This was the only way to release the energy in his body. This was the only way to create the most comfortable feeling and elevate his spirit. Yi Xing's roaring tiger fist had already reached the transcendent state and had reached the acme of perfection. What did it mean to reach perfection? It was only when one used the spirit that it could be considered to have reached perfection. There were different levels in the level of perfection. Yi Xing's roaring tiger fist could only be considered to have just reached the level of perfection. It was at the edge of the level of perfection. True perfection was even more mysterious and unfathomable. It was the highest level of the transformative stage. At this moment, Yi Xing's blood was boiling and his spirit was elevated. In a flash, his roaring tiger fist was even more profound and unpredictable. It had reached the most mysterious level. His aura was almost connected to the heaven and earth. Yi Xing only felt that he had touched a forbidden level. His body was one with the heaven and earth. The power in his body was endless. Take another punch. Yi Xing shouted. His voice was like a tiger's roar. It was so powerful that it shook the surroundings. The students' hearts sank when they heard it. It was as if they were being suppressed by an invisible force. Zhao Xingyang's eyes were suddenly filled with fear. At this moment, Yi Xing's figure was no longer in his eyes. Instead, he saw an incomparably huge tiger, roaring at him and pouncing on him. What was spirit? Spirit was the aura, the suppression of the mind. Because Yi Xing's punch was only aimed at Zhao Xingyang, only Zhao Xingyang could feel the spirit of Yi Xing's punch. As for the other students, they felt that Yi Xing's punch was not much different from the previous two. God was a form of mental suppression. Therefore, the tiger in Zhao Xingyang's eyes was infinitely huge, almost as tall as the sky, occupying the whole world. Seeing such a huge tiger pouncing over, Zhao Xingyang was so scared that he almost peed his pants. There was only fear left in his heart, and he even forgot to use the scarlet flame palm. He just instinctively raised his hands to block. Bang! With a deep sound, Zhao Xingyang's body was like a cannonball as he was sent flying by Yi Xing's punch. He was blasted dozens of feet away and was directly blasted out of the battlefield. The spectating students quickly dodged, and Zhao Xingyang fell to the ground. His arms were dripping with blood, and he spat out blood. He was seriously injured. Previously, when Zhao Xingyang was at a disadvantage, the students were already shocked and exclaimed, "Impossible." However, just as they exclaimed, "Impossible," Yi Xing gave them an even greater shock. He actually sent Zhao Xingyang flying with a punch. This simply made all the students dumbfounded. Except for the students who dodged Zhao Xingyang's body, the rest were all dumbfounded. They could not believe the scene just now. After Yi Xing sent Zhao Xingyang flying, he closed his eyes and sat cross-legged on the ground. All the sounds around him quieted down, and his heart was as still as water. Yi Xing had coincidentally reached the realm of spirit and transformation with that punch just now. He had a sudden epiphany in his heart. In the process of epiphany, one could accidentally feel a profound understanding and quickly turn it into something one truly understood. For martial artists, epiphany was an opportunity that could only be encountered by chance. The majority of martial artists would not have the chance to experience it even once in their lifetime. After a full breath, the deacon on the side recovered from his shock and announced the result. Yi Xing wins and advances to the top 5. The deacon's words caused all the martial artists to recover from their dumbfounded state. In an instant, there was an endless stream of surprise discussions. See, Yi Xing actually defeated Zhao Xingyang? Why didn't Zhao Xingyang resist just now? He only knew how to raise his hand to block. Otherwise, how could he be defeated so miserably by Yi Xing's punch? A student of the ordinary class, and a 2-star Heaven's Mandate, with a cultivation of the 6th stage of the martial path, actually defeated 2 7th-stage grandmasters in a row and advanced to the top 5. Who can tell me, am I dreaming right now? Or am I hallucinating? Top 5 Tiaskedis. Even if the worst gets 5th place, there will be 4 upper-grade star accumulating pills and 1 upper-grade medicinal herb as a reward. It's really enviable. Sigh. The other 4 battles are not over yet, and he has already defeated Zhao Xingyang so quickly. I'm afraid his strength is considered to be in the top 5. His final ranking is probably not just 5th. Do you think he will take 1st place? 1st place? See. Isn't this too exaggerated? What if he takes 1st place? That's too ridiculous. There are 15 martial Dao masters in the genius class. It's already a great shame for him to enter the top 5. If he takes 1st place, the genius class will not be called the genius class, it will be called the trash class. That's right. The academy specially divided 1 genius class and 10 ordinary classes. Isn't it to highlight the genius class and focus on cultivating geniuses? If the 1st place is taken by the ordinary class, then it's really blind. Why is Yi Xing sitting there all the time? The battle between him and Zhao Xingyang was not long, so he shouldn't have consumed too much energy. How could he have adjusted his internal breath? Yes, it's really strange. Is he cultivating? It won't be long before the top 5 assessment. What's the use of this time to cultivate? Oh! Why are you shouting? Do you feel that there's a strange aura on Yi Xing? It feels very mysterious and profound. Is there? It seems that there really is. Why do I feel like I'm looking at a martial Dao grandmaster instead of a LV6 martial artist when I look at him? I understand. He is having an epiphany. The students discussed in surprise and finally discovered Yi Xing's abnormality. Moreover, some students thought of an epiphany and almost screamed out in surprise. Epiphany was simply a legend to the majority of martial artists. It was difficult to encounter one in their lifetime. However, any martial artist knew that epiphany was extremely beneficial to martial artists. If they could encounter it, it would be a great opportunity. How is this possible? He's only a LV6 martial artist. How can he reach the state of epiphany? Some students exclaimed in disbelief. Epiphany, since it had the word enlightenment, naturally had something to do with the martial artist's comprehension. Generally speaking, the higher a martial artist's attainment in martial arts, the easier it was for them to have an epiphany. The higher their attainment in martial arts, the higher their cultivation, and it was directly proportional. Therefore, when there were records of epiphany, the person was either a martial sage or a LV9 martial artist. Even LV8 martial artists were rare. Yi Xing was only a LV6 martial artist. Although his current state was very similar to the legendary epiphany, some students still found it hard to believe. When some students voiced their doubts, many others chimed in, expressing that it was impossible. However, the deacon in charge of the venue said with certainty, "He has indeed entered the state of epiphany." This deacon was a LV8 martial artist. He was a LV8 martial artist. His vision was much higher than these new students, so his words were naturally credible. He's really in the state of epiphany? I heard that entering the state of epiphany will bring great benefits. Whether it's cultivation or strength, it will increase rapidly. He's already defeated Zhao Xingyang. If his strength increases again in the state of epiphany, won't he be first in this assessment? The students cried out in surprise once again. Yi Xing. At this moment, A sudden roar shook the sky. A figure suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xing. A surging aura erupted, suppressing Yi Xing puff. Yi Xing was interrupted in the process of epiphany, and he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. If it had been a normal discussion, no matter how loud it was, Yi Xing would have calmed himself down and ignored it in the state of epiphany. However, this roar was like a clap of thunder. Moreover, it was called his name, and it carried a shocking aura that suppressed him. Naturally, it forcibly pulled him out of the state of epiphany. How difficult was it to enter the state of epiphany? Interrupting one's epiphany was equivalent to cutting off one's opportunity. This could lead to a life-and-death battle. Flames of anger burned in Yi Xing's eyes. Just a little bit more, and he would have completely comprehended. Not only the roaring tiger fist, but many other martial arts techniques would have reached the true state of spirit. However, such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity was interrupted at the last moment. This caused his inner breath to go berserk, his qi and blood to flow backward, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. If it were not for his superbrain's powerful ability that allowed him to remain clear-headed at such a critical moment and instantly control the berserk inner breath and reverse qi and blood in his body, the moment his epiphany was interrupted, he would have almost gone mad and been severely injured. The students who were discussing in shock immediately quieted down. They looked at Xianxia in front of Yi Xing in shock. They wondered, what kind of undying hatred is there between the two of them? Otherwise, why would Xianxia do such a terrible thing to Yi Xing? Yi Xing stood up. His eyes were filled with terrifying murderous intent as he stared at Xianxia and said word by word. Xianxia sneered and said, Yi Xing, you should know the rules in front of your seniors. I'm here to inform you that you will be the first to fight against Bian Chuxing for the top 5. Yi Xing said coldly, the arrangement will be decided by the school's deacons. It's not up to a student like you to interfere. You're clearly trying to interrupt my epiphany. Xianxia said in shock. So you're in the middle of an epiphany? Don't joke around. How can you enter the state of epiphany? I'm just here to inform you. I saw that you seemed to be sleeping with your eyes closed, so I spoke a little louder. I'm so sorry. Yi Xing snorted and said, go ahead and pretend. I'll make you pay for it very soon. As he spoke, Yi Xing's aura suddenly exploded. He released his cultivation and it was already at the late stage of LV6. Chapter 102. Although Yi Xing's epiphany had been interrupted by Xianxia, the superbrain's quick reaction had stopped the chaos in his body and blood, so he wasn't affected too much. In fact, Yi Xing had benefited greatly from the epiphany. Not only had his martial arts skills improved a lot, but his cultivation had also skyrocketed and reached the late stage of the 6th rank. The only pity was that his martial arts had almost reached the final juncture in the epiphany. If he had completed it, not only would his cultivation be promoted to a higher realm, but he could also enter the state where he could blow Zhao Xingyang away with one punch at any time. Yi Xing's spirit was so powerful that it seemed to occupy the entire world in Zhao Xingyang's eyes. Zhao Xingyang was scared out of his wits and didn't dare to fight back. He only cupped his fists and blocked the attack. If every punch could be so powerful, any martial Dao master would be nothing in front of Yi Xing. They would be like ants. Therefore, even though Yi Xing had benefited greatly from the epiphany, he was still very angry. Seeing that Yi Xing's cultivation had reached the late stage of the 6th rank, Xianxia's face darkened. It seemed that he had been too slow in interrupting Yi Xing's epiphany. Yi Xing had already benefited greatly from the epiphany. You'll make me pay the price soon? How soon? Xianxia's eyes were sharp and his aura was sharp as he said coldly. Seeing that Yi Xing's cultivation had increased so quickly, Xianxia wasn't confident about the battle anymore. Yi Xing had reached the late stage of the 6th rank from the peak of the 5th rank in just 1 month. What would happen in 2 months? Even though Xianxia was confident that he could reach the 8th rank in 2 months, Yi Xing's cultivation and strength had increased too much. Naturally, he wasn't confident. Yi Xing was only a 2-star heavenly fate realm cultivator. Logically speaking, this kind of trash would be at the bottom of the list even in the small towns under Azure Sky City. However, Xianxia was aware of Yi Xing's experience. Before the age of 16, he was a nobody, but after that, he had soared into the sky in just a few months. Not only did he have a great reputation in the celestial Azure City, surpassing one genius after another, he even showed signs of rising rapidly in the Purple Mountain Institute, where geniuses gathered. This made Xianxia fearful of Yi Xing's future. He felt that the more time passed, the more mature Yi Xing would become. Therefore, Xianxia couldn't wait for the battle between him and Yi Xing to start 2 months later. Xianxia had interrupted Yi Xing's epiphany. This was simply touching Yi Xing's reverse scale. Ever since he was eliminated to the ordinary class, Yi Xing's heart had been burning with rage. Now, this rage was even more intense. Yi Xing also didn't want to wait another 2 months to deal with Xianxia. He also wanted to do it as soon as possible. The earlier he dealt with Xianxia, the better Yi Xing would feel. "I'll deal with you after the test." Yi Xing's gaze was as sharp as a sword as he stared at Xianxia. If he hadn't experienced the epiphany, Yi Xing wouldn't have challenged Xianxia so quickly. However, the increase in his strength during the epiphany gave him confidence. Xianxia's eyes lit up. His primary purpose for interrupting Yi Xing's epiphany was to destroy Yi Xing's opportunity. However, he also thought about provoking Yi Xing so that Yi Xing wouldn't be able to hold back his anger and fight with him ahead of time. If Yi Xing wanted to fight with him now, it would be exactly what Xianxia wanted. Xianxia revealed a cruel smile. Very good. I'll wait for you." "No way? Yi Xing actually wants to fight with Xianxia after the test? This is too reckless." Xianxia is a student of the advanced genius class. His cultivation is already at the peak of the 7th level. Arrogant, too arrogant. I don't even know if he can get first place in the test. Even if he gets first place in the test, he can only defeat a few martial Dao masters in the early 7th level. What right does he have to fight with Xianxia? He may have seen that he defeated a martial Dao master twice in a row and is a little overconfident. He thinks that he can defeat all the martial Dao masters. This is indeed arrogant. He must have been blinded by anger. It's indeed hateful that he was interrupted in the state of epiphany. However, he should know his limits. How can he be Xianxia's opponent? Isn't he asking for trouble? Yi Xing was actually going to compete with Xianxia, which made all the students extremely shocked, and once again they started to talk about it. At this time, the other 4 battles had already ended. Ling Fengjue defeated Jing Feitian, Yu Sixue defeated Nan Xinrou, Li Yanzhao defeated Yu Hua, and Bian Chuxing defeated Yang Ping. Ling Fengjue, Yu Sixue, Li Yanzhao, Bian Chuxing, and Yi Xing were the top 5. Except for Yi Xing, the other 4 were naturally very strong. Xianxia felt happy and sneered in his heart. When the deacons in charge of the test gathered to decide the order of appearance of the top 5, he walked over. "Deacon He, Deacon Luo." Xianxia greeted them and then said in an extremely low voice, "The first battle of the top 5 will be between Yi Xing and Bian Chuxing. Then it will be between Yi Xing and Yu Sixue, Yi Xing and Li Yanzhao, and Yi Xing and Ling Fengjue consecutively." Deacon He was the deacon who had presided over the battle between Yi Xing and Zhao Xingyang. When he heard this, he said unhappily, "How can you let someone fight 4 battles consecutively? Isn't this a tag team battle? It's very unfair to Yi Xing." When Deacon He saw Xianxia interrupting Yi Xing's epiphany, he knew that there was a huge enmity between the 2 of them. However, he didn't expect that in order to deal with Yi Xing, Xianxia would even interfere with the test. His expression was unhappy. However, Xianxia was the vice principal's disciple. Even though Deacon He was unhappy, he didn't chase Xianxia away. Furthermore, in order to protect Xianxia's face, he also lowered his voice. Xianxia chuckled and continued in a low voice, "Deacons, this is not my idea, but the idea of my teacher, Vice Principal Wang Haiqing. If Yi Xing, this trash from the ordinary class, were to take the first place, not only would it be a disgrace to the students of the gifted class, but it would also bring shame to the academy. Therefore, it is natural that we must prevent Yi Xing from taking the first place. When they heard Xianxia say that this was Vice Principal Wang Haiqing's idea, the expressions of the deacons changed. Naturally, they didn't have any objections. The school also placed great importance on this new student assessment. Vice Principal Wang Haiqing was watching from the VIP building at the side. They guessed that Xianxia wouldn't dare to pass on his master's idea. The first match of the top 5 ranking battle, Bian Chuxing versus Yi Xing, very quickly, a deacon announced the name list for the first match. The top 5 ranking battle would only take place in the middle of the arena. Match after match, all the spectators gathered around the middle of the arena. Yi Xing and Bian Chuxing walked towards the arena. The students took the initiative to make way for them. Yi Xing went up in the first match, and his target was Bian Chuxing. This was exactly as Xianxia had said before. In addition, before the deacon announced the name list, Xianxia had contacted several deacons. This made Yi Xing understand that Xianxia must have played some tricks in the following battle. However, Yi Xing was not afraid at all. In the face of absolute strength, any method was useless. If Yi Xing couldn't even deal with Bian Chuxing and the other 3 martial Dao masters in the early stage of level 7, then he would be courting death if he still wanted to settle his grudge with Xianxia after the assessment. This was obviously impossible. Bian Chuxing had a cold smile on his face. Yi Xing, you are really unexpected. Not only was Jiang Wenlong defeated by you, even Zhao Shenyang was mysteriously defeated by you. However, you are not so lucky to have met me. Lucky? Bian Chuxing thought that he was lucky to have advanced to the top 5? Yi Xing showed a smile on his face. It was good to be confident, but it was stupid to blindly think highly of oneself and look down on others. What are you laughing at? Bian Chuxing felt the sarcasm in Yi Xing's smile and said angrily. I am laughing at you for being an idiot, Yi Xing said lightly. Although Bian Chuxing had never heard of the word idiot, he roughly understood the meaning. There were 2 words in the word idiot. Wasn't it used to describe a fool? Bian Chuxing's face was full of anger. He glared fiercely at Yi Xing and then said to Deacon Luo, "Can we start?" "Let's start." Deacon Luo nodded. "I will let you know who is the real idiot," Bian Chuxing said coldly. In an instant, the surrounding temperature dropped. Bian Chuxing's palm was covered with a layer of white frost. No wonder Bian Chuxing was so confident. It turned out that he was the same as Zhao Shenyang. He had also cultivated his internal strength into an attribute. Moreover, his ice internal strength was more vigorous than Zhao Shenyang's raging flame internal strength. Internal strength with an attribute was cultivated in a special place. For example, raging flame internal strength could only be cultivated in a place with abundant fire energy. On the other hand, ice internal strength could only be cultivated in a place with ice and snow or in a cold place like a cold pond. Internal strength with an attribute had an additional destructive effect compared to ordinary internal strength. It was more powerful under the same strength. As soon as Bian Chuxing finished speaking, his whole body was like a flying eagle pouncing on a rabbit. He jumped 10 feet and pounced on Yi Xing with a punch. Upper grade martial skill, Frost Fist. The Frost Fist performed with ice internal strength was very powerful. Moreover, wherever the wind from the palm passed, it would be bone-chilling and weaken the opponent's state. No wonder Bian Chuxing was able to defeat 2 martial Dao masters of the same realm and break into the top 5. Xianxia arranged for Bian Chuxing to fight in the first round. Obviously, he was very sure of Bian Chuxing's strength and wanted to defeat Yi Xing in the first round. However, in the face of Bian Chuxing's terrifying palm, Yi Xing's expression did not change at all. He just casually threw out a palm. Are you kidding me? Lower grade martial skill? Great monument hand? The audience present were all people who had cultivated upper grade martial skills. How could they not see that Yi Xing had used the lower grade martial skill, Great Monument Hand? They were extremely shocked. In the eyes of the spectators, Yi Xing's palm strike was very casual. However, in Bian Chuxing's eyes, this palm strike covered the heavens and earth. Bian Chuxing's expression changed drastically, and his heart trembled. The momentum of the frigid frost palm dissipated instantly. In the shocked eyes of the audience, Bian Chusheng's frost fist was defeated and was slapped away by Yi Xing's palm. However, Yi Xing's palm continued to move forward and imprinted on Bian Chusheng's chest. Bang! Bian Chusheng was sent flying by Yi Xing's palm. He was like a kite with a broken string floating in the distance. Chapter 103. Whether it was the students or the deacons, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Even the teachers in the VIP building and the higher-ups of the academy had a change in expression. Their faces were filled with obvious shock. A master in the 7th stage of the martial path was defeated by Yi Xing, who was in the 6th stage of the martial path. This was unbelievable. Bian Chusheng flew more than 10 feet away and fell to the ground. He felt a sharp pain in his chest and couldn't get up for a while. His face was ashen. Not only was his body severely injured, but his mind was also severely damaged. Bian Chusheng finally understood why Yi Xing called him an idiot. It was because he was an idiot. He couldn't even block Yi Xing's palm, but he thought that he was infallible in front of Yi Xing. It was ridiculous. Bian Chusheng's defeat made Yu Xixue, Li Yanzhao, and Ling Fengjue look serious. Yi Xing's strength was far beyond their expectations. The first round, Yi Xing wins. Bian Chusheng loses. Deacon Luo was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted and announced the results of the first round. Then, he announced the names of the participants for the second round. The second round, Yu Xixue versus Yi Xing. Many students found it strange that Yi Xing would be in the second round. Logically speaking, since Yi Xing had participated in the first round, he wouldn't participate in the second round. It should be a fight between two of the remaining 3 people. The third round would be between the last person and Yi Xing, who had won the first round. The same person was arranged for 2 consecutive rounds. This was suspected to be a tag team battle. However, the students knew that Yi Xing defeated Bian Chusheng with a single palm. He didn't consume much energy. Even if he fought consecutively, his opponent in the second round wouldn't be able to take advantage of him. Yu Xixue walked in front of Yi Xing. Her expression was charming as she said softly to Yi Xing, "Senior brother Yi, please show mercy." As the goddess of the genius class, Yu Xixue's expression almost stole the souls of many male students. Many male students wished they could replace Yi Xing and imagine that Yu Xixue would be so charming to them. Yi Xing's expression didn't change at all as he nodded slightly. Although Yu Xixue was beautiful, Yi Xing had seen the true face of Wei Qingxian, who was 10 times more beautiful than her. Now, Yi Xing's standards of beauty were no longer that of a country bumpkin. He compared everything to Wei Qingxian. In the face of Yu Xixue's charm, his heart was as calm as still water. "Let's begin," Deacon Luo ordered. He would be the judge of the top 5 ranking battles. As soon as Deacon Luo's voice fell, Yu Xixue's figure disappeared in a flash. Upper grade movement technique, Wind Shadow Steps. The Wind Shadow Steps was extremely fast. When it was used, one could only hear the sound of the wind and not see the body. Because of the extreme speed, the body faded into a faint shadow. In terms of strength, Yu Xixue wasn't stronger than other early stage 7th stage masters. Her strength was in her movement technique. With the Wind Shadow Steps, which had surpassed the initial stage, she appeared and disappeared like a ghost and attacked her opponent suddenly. Yi Xing stepped on the Big Dipper and his body also turned illusory, leaving behind afterimages. Competing with him in movement technique? This was Yi Xing's strength. In the next moment, Yu Xixue's body appeared behind Yi Xing. Her fist was like a dragon emerging from the sea. It was powerful and overbearing. She used the upper-grade martial skill, Tyrant Dragon Fist. However, at this moment, Yi Xing's body had already disappeared. His afterimage flashed beside Yu Xixue. Yu Xixue's fist missed. Yi Xing appeared a few feet away from Yu Xixue, playing with a jade hairpin in his hand. Yu Xixue originally wanted to continue fighting with her opponent using the Wind Shadow Steps. However, when she saw the jade hairpin in Yi Xing's hand, her expression changed. It was the hairpin on her head. She touched her head and sure enough, the hairpin had disappeared. A piercing chill appeared in Yu Sishue's heart. Yi Xing took the hairpin from her head and she didn't even notice. Didn't that mean that if Yi Xing wanted her life, she would already be dead? Thank you, senior brother Yi, for showing mercy. Sishue has lost. Yu Sishue bowed respectfully to Yi Xing with a face full of reverence. Yi Xing returned the hairpin to his opponent. In the second round he won with one move again. At this time, the shock on the faces of the students was no longer as intense. The shock that Yi Xing had caused them had already reached the limit and they were beginning to become numb. After Yi Xing's enlightenment, his strength has increased by a lot. Bian Chusheng and Yu Sishue were both defeated by him in one move. It seems that first place in the exam will really be taken by him. Some students sighed. Yi Xing, as a student of the common class, had won first place in the exam. If such a thing really happened, it was likely that many years later, it would still be spread throughout the Purple Mountain Academy. This was because Yi Xing was originally in the gifted class. It was the academy that eliminated him to the common class. In the process of spreading this news, the academy would undoubtedly be the one that was slapped in the face. It seems that eliminating him to the common class was indeed the academy's mistake. He will definitely take first place in this exam. Li Yanzhao and Ling Fengjue's strength shouldn't be much different from Bian Chusheng and Yu Sishue's. I wonder if they can withstand one move from Yi Xing. Some students said so. These words received the approval of the majority of the students. After all, based on the strength that Yi Xing had displayed, the results could basically be determined. The only difference was whether Li Yanzhao and Ling Fengjue could withstand one move from Yi Xing or even longer. At the highest floor of the VIP building, Vice Principal Wang Haiqing's face was gloomy. Yi Xing's elimination from the gifted class was something that Wang Haiqing had told him. Now, the more outstanding Yi Xing's performance was, the more Wang Haiqing's face would be slapped. Vice Principal Wang, such a genius, was actually eliminated to the common class. This is your people's negligence. An old man in his 60s stroked his long beard as he looked at Wang Haiqing. The corners of his eyes carried a faintly discernible smile. There were a total of 3 vice principals in the Indigo Mountain Institute. This old man was called Wu Yunshan, and he was also a vice principal. However, because the Wang clan's descendant, Wang Feng, was Zishan Ho's adopted son, Wang Haiqing's position in the Indigo Mountain Institute also rose along with the tide. It was faintly surpassing the other 2 vice principals. Most of the time, Wang Haiqing had the right to speak. Wang Haiqing was only in his 50s, and he was the youngest among the 3 vice principals. However, he was able to suppress the other 2 vice principals, which naturally caused the other 2 vice principals to be dissatisfied. Among the 3 vice principals, Mo Xiaozong only listened to Wang Haiqing. Now that Wang Haiqing's people had made a mistake, Wu Yunshan naturally took the opportunity to attack. Wang Haiqing coldly snorted and took a sip of tea. His expression slowly returned to normal as he said, "The competition is not over yet, and it's still too early to make a conclusion. Moreover, Yi Xing is only a 2-star heavenly fate realm cultivator. How can he have any future prospects? Even if he's strong for now, it doesn't mean anything." Wu Yunshan didn't let go of this opportunity and said, "A 2-star heavenly fate realm cultivator is naturally weak, but it doesn't mean that he can't become a talent. No talent can stop luck, and luck is accumulated by standing at the peak time after time. If Yi Xing can obtain first place in this competition, it can be seen that his luck isn't small. There's still hope for him to become a talent in the future. Then Mo Xiaozong has really eliminated a genius, and he should be punished. At the very least, he should be stripped of his qualifications to lead the genius class, and a more steady and meticulous teacher should be sent to lead the new students." The other vice principal, Li Xiaoran, also nodded. That's right. If Yi Xing obtains first place, then Mo Xiaozong's qualifications to lead the genius class will be stripped. In the Violet Mountain Academy, there were several 9th-stage martial path teachers, but there were only 2 in the genius class. Not all 9th-stage martial masters were qualified to lead the genius class. And once they lead the genius class, they would have a teacher-student relationship with the other geniuses in the genius class. In the future, When these geniuses graduate and return to their respective families, they would either become elders or patriarchs. Therefore, being a teacher in the genius class was a good job. The three vice principals each had their own factions, and naturally, they would want their own people to be the teachers of the genius class. Wu Yunshan and Li Xiaoran, the two vice principals, had joined hands, and with Mo Xiaozong's weakness, it was completely possible to remove Mo Xiaozong from his position. Even Wang Haiqing would not be able to keep his position. After all, Wang Haiqing's words were only slightly more powerful, but not to the extent of being the king of the academy. At this time, Wu Yunshan's old face lit up with joy. He laughed. Ha! Yi Xing defeated Li Yanzhao with one move again. It seems like Ling Fengjue is about the same under Yi Xing. The first place of the examination is Yi Xing's for sure. Li Xiaoran's expression was also filled with joy. As long as Mo Xiaozong's position was removed, then his people would have a 50% chance of succeeding. On the square, Li Yanzhao's situation was similar to Bian Chuxing's. He was also sent flying by Yi Xing's palm. Towards someone who had an agreement with Xiong Qixing, Yi Xing would not show mercy. The third match, Yi Xing wins, Li Yanzhao loses. The fourth match, Ling Fengjue versus Yi Xing. Deacon Luo first announced the result of the third match, then immediately announced the name list for the fourth match. For the 4 consecutive matches, Yi Xing was present in all of them. He fought against 4 people in a row. Anyone could see that there was something fishy about the arrangement of the matches. It was obvious that they wanted to take turns to deal with Yi Xing. They did not want Yi Xing to obtain the first place of the examination. However, even if they took turns to fight, it did not have any effect. Looking at Yi Xing's expression, he did not look like he had consumed too much inner strength. In the 3 consecutive matches, Yi Xing defeated his opponents with one move, so he did not consume much inner strength. Therefore, in the 4th match against Ling Fengjue, Yi Xing was still in peak condition. At this time, even the most biased students were certain of the result. The first place of the examination would definitely belong to Yi Xing. Even if they did not want to see this result, Yi Xing's strength was too terrifying. Bian Chuxing, Yu Xixue, and Li Yanzhao were all defeated with one move. Ling Fengjue could not possibly be Yi Xing's opponent. Ling Fengjue walked into the arena and faced Yi Xing. Yi Xing was like a mountain standing tall and deep in the abyss. His temperament was otherworldly, while Ling Fengjue frowned slightly. His expression was melancholy. The difference in their auras was instantly determined. There was almost no suspense about the result of this match. However, at this time, a voice drilled into Yi Xing's ears. Yi Xing, I am the Vice Dean Wang Haiqing. You have lost this match. After this, I will recall you back to the gifted class. The voice had been in a high position for a long time and was filled with a commanding tone. There will be another chapter tonight. The monthly votes are very sad. I beg for a monthly vote in tears. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.